The innocent confidence in Leo's voice reminded Noah of the delicate balance between protecting someone's feelings and preparing them for reality. While Leo's current capabilities weren't sufficient for the dangers ahead, Noah did not care. When he had first traded the egg that came from Vex, he never expected to get such a powerful pet. Initially, Noah had only seen Leo as a pet that would protect him during his outside adventures, but now Leo was more than that. Leo's weakness no longer mattered. In fact, Noah wasn't looking to be protected by Leo, but wanted to protect him. Noah spent a few more minutes observing Lola's dedicated training, appreciating her focused commitment to strengthening herself for their upcoming mission. Her determination to reach the power levels necessary for protecting him during the World Tree expedition was both touching and essential for his plans. He then stood up and retrieved one item, each from his Tier 1 premium inventory: protein bar, energy drink, beef jerky, and rice cake, placing them carefully in his storage ring for emergencies. A person never knew what could happen to them. With his supplies secured, Noah departed the shop to focus on the quarterfinal competition that awaited him. Back at the resort, Noah emerged from his room without bothering with the complimentary breakfast. He had decided that consuming one of his magical bread loaves would provide superior nutrition and enhancement compared to conventional food. As he walked toward the tournament venue, Noah nibbled on the golden loaf, which maintained its exceptional taste regardless of how frequently he consumed it. The familiar flavors and magical properties never seemed to diminish through repetition. The casual consumption of bread worth $1,500 represented a transformation he never could have anticipated during his previous life of financial struggle. The tournament grounds appeared ahead, bustling with activity as staff prepared for the quarterfinal matches that would eliminate half the remaining competitors. Noah's swordsmanship level and physical attributes gave him confidence about advancing, but the level of competition had undoubtedly intensified as weaker participants were eliminated. His consumption of enhancement items before the match would provide additional advantages that his opponents couldn't access, making victory more likely despite the increased difficulty of quarter-final level competition. Of course, the healing enhancement wasn't necessarily the reason why he would win. In fact, Noah could certainly cheat and consume any of his Tier 1 or Tier 2 items to ensure he won the tournament, but he wasn't going to do that. If he couldn't win this tournament without cheating, then he truly didn't deserve to become a swordsman. He had been trained under the hands of Lola, Valeria, and Master Tanaka. Furthermore, he also had incredibly high stats that separated him from powerful humans like the contestants. The hour marking the tournament's beginning soon passed, and contestants began flooding into the arena. Spectators also started arriving and taking their seats in the elaborately constructed viewing areas. These spectators weren't ordinary observers. They represented martial arts enthusiasts with significant wealth or were accomplished practitioners themselves. Each possessed the high social status necessary to gain access to such an exclusive event. The tournament's location at this luxurious mountain resort wasn't coincidental. Such prestigious competitions required a very large financial backing and influential connections to secure venues that could accommodate both the technical requirements of high-level swordsmanship and the expectations of elite audiences. Wealthy martial arts patrons mingled with retired masters who had come to evaluate the next generation of talent. Corporate sponsors and dojo owners scouted for promising students worth recruiting or investing in. The atmosphere held the sort of tension of an event where careers could be launched or destroyed based on a single match's outcome. Unlike amateur competitions where participation itself held value, this tournament represented serious business where reputation, sponsorship opportunities, and future prospects hung in the balance. Noah observed the gathering crowd while mentally preparing for his quarterfinal match. The elevated status of both competitors and spectators meant his performance would be scrutinized by individuals capable of recognizing exceptional talent when they witnessed it. Noah wasn't particularly worried about showcasing his powers. After gaining the powerful item, Amulet of Protection, Noah no longer felt as defensive or tense. The item had given him a peace of mind that even if he showcased his full physical capability, he wouldn't be worried about envious young masters. With the growing number of contestants appearing, Ichigo also arrived with obvious excitement, his enthusiasm for the tournament practically radiating from him as he made his way through the gathering crowd of elite spectators and competitors. "Noah!" Ichigo called out with his usual energy, weaving between wealthy martial arts enthusiasts and distinguished martial artists to reach his friend. How are you feeling? Do you feel ready? His genuine excitement was infectious, cutting through the refined atmosphere of the high-status event with refreshing authenticity. Unlike many competitors who carried themselves with composure designed to impress potential sponsors or masters, Ichigo maintained the pure joy of someone who simply loved the art of swordsmanship. The energy here is completely different from the earlier rounds, Ichigo continued, gesturing toward the assembled crowd. Look at all these important people. I heard there are representatives from various dojos watching today. They are all respected within the martial arts world. Noah nodded with understanding, recognizing that Ichigo's enthusiasm came from deep love to the sport. His friend's excitement reminded him that tournaments could be enjoyed for their own sake rather than treated purely as a stepping stones. Ready for your match? Noah asked, genuinely curious about Ichigo's preparation and confidence level. As ready as I'll ever be, Ichigo replied with determination that carried no false bravado. Win or lose, I'm going to give everything I have. That's all any of us can do at this level. The honest assessment reflected the maturity that serious martial arts training developed in dedicated practitioners, understanding that effort and skill mattered more than outcome, even in high-stakes competitions. The quarter-finals has officially started. The first quarter-final match began soon after the opening ceremonies concluded. In an ironic twist of tournament fate, the initial bout featured the two competitors Noah had encountered during his training the previous evening, Hiroshi, who had politely invited Noah to join their group practice, and Kenji, who had criticized Noah's supposed arrogance for declining their offer. The bracket arrangement had created an immediate clash between the competitor and his more judgmental training partner, forcing them to face each other in the quarterfinals. Hiroshi entered the ring with the same respectful composure he had shown the night before, bowing formally to both his opponent and the assembled judges. Kenji approached the match with visible aggression. It was clear that he did not like the bracket matching. This should be interesting, Noah said to Ichigo as they watched the pre-match preparations. These two have a good relationship with each other. I wonder if it will be strained by whatever the outcome is. Ichigo smiled before saying, man, just know that if we face each other in the finals, and you win, I would not be upset. Noah laughed, shaking his head with a wry smile. You must be really confident in reaching the finals, huh? This time Ichigo did not reply, simply being content with smiling. The contrast between respectful competition and personal vindication would determine not just who advanced to the semifinals, but which training methodology proved more effective under tournament pressure. The judges called for positions as both competitors drew their practice swords, ready to battle it out. The battle concluded with Hiroshi's decisive victory, his skill proving superior in the end. His technique remained composed throughout, while Kenji's aggression led to certain mistakes that cost him crucial points. Kenji's face flushed with obvious anger and embarrassment as the judges announced the result. Despite his internal turmoil, he maintained enough sportsmanship to approach his opponent for the traditional post-match acknowledgement. Congratulations, Kenji said through gritted teeth, forcing the words out. You better win this tournament, Hiroshi. Hiroshi nodded in return. I will. As Kenji stepped down from the competition platform, his eyes caught Noah observing from the spectator area. The sight of the man who had rejected their training invitation now watching his defeat sent a surge of humiliation through him. He's probably laughing at me inside, Kenji thought bitterly, thinking that even after all that training, I still lost. That arrogant bastard probably thinks he is so high and mighty now. What are you looking at? Kenji shouted, his voice carrying across the venue as he strode toward Noah with his fists clenched. Several spectators turned to observe the developing confrontation, sensing the tension building between the eliminated competitor and another quarter-finalist. Noah shrugged casually, indifferent to Kenji's words. I was just looking around, not necessarily at you. The dismissive response only inflamed Kenji's wounded pride further. Before he could escalate the situation, Ichigo stepped protectively between them. Hey man, calm down, Ichigo said with a friendly smile. Noah didn't mean to offend you. We're all competitors here. Kenji slapped Ichigo's extended hand away roughly. Move aside. This doesn't concern you. Ichigo's perpetual smile faltered for a brief moment, his eyes hardening at the dismissal. But within a second, his grin returned, as if nothing had happened. I'm trying to help defuse the situation, Ichigo replied, his tone remaining pleasant despite the underlying steel. There's no need for confrontation after a good match. Before the tension could escalate further, tournament officials intervened. The head referee approached with a stern expression on his face. Competitor Kenji, you need to leave the venue immediately, the official declared. Disrupting other participants is grounds for disqualification from future events. I'm sure you wouldn't want that. Security personnel flanked the referee, making it clear that compliance wasn't optional. The stakes had suddenly shifted from personal grievance to potential career consequences in the martial arts community. Kenji glanced at Noah once more, his jaw still tight with frustration, before turning toward the referee with forced composure. I apologize for the disruption. I will take my leave now, he said, his voice strained but controlled. The security personnel maintained their positions as Kenji walked toward the exit, his shoulders rigid with suppressed anger. Several spectators watched his departure with obvious disapproval at the display. Ichigo watched him leave before shaking his head with genuine confusion. Geez, what was that about? The guy completely lost it over a simple glance. Noah observed the retreating figure thoughtfully. Wounded pride, probably. Losing in front of an audience is hard enough without feeling like someone's judging your performance afterward. Still doesn't excuse taking it out on random people, especially when you weren't even doing anything wrong. The incident had drawn attention from tournament officials and spectators alike, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere that lingered even after Kenji's departure. Several competitors exchanged glances, recognizing that such behavior reflected poorly on the martial arts community's reputation for discipline and respect. Thanks for stepping in, Noah said to Ichigo with genuine appreciation. That could have gotten uglier if officials hadn't intervened. We've got matches to focus on instead of dealing with sore losers. The tournament announcer's voice echoed across the venue, calling for the next quarterfinal match to begin, effectively shifting everyone's attention back to the competition where it belonged. 3 fights remained in the quarterfinals. Unlike the earlier rounds, the organizers hadn't announced the matchups beforehand, likely to increase suspense and anxiety among the remaining competitors. The uncertainty meant Noah could very well face Ichigo in the next round, a possibility that existed within the realm of possibility. In fact, the chance was pretty high. With 6 contestants left, the chance was not small at all. The announcer called names for the second quarterfinal match, revealing 2 competitors Noah didn't recognize from his previous observations. Both fighters demonstrated solid technique, but one clearly possessed superior skills that gradually wore down his opponent's defenses. The match concluded with a decisive victory for the winner, whose name was announced as Liam. Surprisingly, Liam appeared to be American rather than of Japanese heritage, standing out among the predominantly Asian competitors in this traditional martial arts tournament. Despite his cultural background differing from most participants, Liam had demonstrated swordsmanship skills that Noah estimated at around level 8. Genuinely impressive technique that explained his advancement to the semifinals. His fighting style had clearly caught his opponent off guard. Liam's advancement meant the semifinals would feature diverse fighting and cultural approaches to swordsmanship. With 2 quarterfinal matches remaining, Noah recognized that his own fight was approaching rapidly, along with the possibility of facing either Ichigo or the final unknown competitor in what promised to be increasingly challenging combat. The third fight announcement came with clear bracket revelations that settled the remaining quarterfinal matchups. Stepping on the stage, the head referee coughed to clear his throat before grabbing the attention of everyone present. Ladies and gentlemen, the remaining quarterfinal matches are as follows: Noah Carter versus Hikari Yami, and Kenzo Nakamura versus Ichigo Tanaka. Phew. Man, I thought we were going to face each other. Ichigo wiped invisible sweat beads from his forehead. Noah shook his head at Ichigo's antics before walking to the stage with measured steps and a composed expression. after hearing his name being called. Hikari walked to the stage with a stern expression. He looked very serious, as if this was a life-and-death battle for him. Hikari's posture suggested he wasn't underestimating Noah despite their lack of previous encounters. As both competitors took their positions, the panel of judges observed with obvious interest. "This should be entertaining," one judge remarked to his colleagues. "I'm curious how Tanaka's student will perform under increased pressure." Hikari isn't a weak contestant. He was considered to be one of the competitors that might win the tournament. "Indeed, this will be an interesting match, although I must say it would be really disappointing if he loses now," another judge replied thoughtfully. "The boy seems to be following his master's footsteps quite naturally. Notice how calm Tanaka's student appears," the third judge observed with narrowing eyes. "He doesn't strike me as the arrogant type either. That level of composure suggests he is really confident in his abilities." Among the spectators, whispered conversations spread with anticipation for the mysterious competitor who had drawn such attention. "That's the one who appeared from nowhere," a wealthy patron murmured to his companion. Master Tanaka had never brought a student to the tournament, yet this young man seems to have earned his personal instruction. "His physical power in the elimination rounds was remarkable," replied a retired swordsman. "He looked as if he was even holding back his strength. He wasn't even breathing heavy at the end of the battle. The question is whether he can maintain that level against someone like Hikari," added another observer. "I heard Hikari has been training since childhood, whereas I've never heard of this Noah Carter. He should be a new swordsman." On the spectator stand, Kenzo stood watching as Noah prepared to face his opponent. "Sigh. It's a pity, I wanted to fight him during this stage. Well, let's hope he survives till then," Kenzo whispered to himself, a wide grin on his face. The referee raised his hand, signaling the phase of starting the match. "Fighters, take your positions." Noah and Hikari moved to opposite ends of the competition area, both drawing their swords. The crowd fell silent as tension built between the two competitors. As the leaf touched the ground, Hikari took charge. Whoosh! Hikari immediately launched forward with explosive speed, his blade cutting through the air in a diagonal strike aimed at Noah's shoulder. Clang! Noah's sword intercepted the strike seemingly without too much effort, the impact sending vibrations through both weapons. But while Hikari felt the jarring shock travel up his arms, Noah remained perfectly steady, as if the collision had barely registered. Swish! Thwack! Hikari followed up with a rapid combination of attacks: horizontal slash, vertical cut, diagonal sweep, each strike delivered with textbook form and considerable power. The crowd murmured appreciatively at the technical display. This competitor is indeed this tournament's dark horse. Never heard of him before yet, he is able to stand on equal grounds with Hikari, one of the spectators said, whilst watching with amazement. Clang! 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 Noah parried each attack from Hikari, his defenses appearing like an impenetrable fortress despite facing someone of Hikari's caliber. Noah's footwork remained controlled, never giving ground despite the relentless assault. Impressive defense from Carter, one judge observed quietly. But let's see his offense. Whoosh! Crack! Hikari attempted a feint followed by a thrust toward Noah's midsection, but Noah read the deception instantly and sidestepped. Hikari's thirst missed its target, but that wasn't the end as Noah launched his own counterattack. Swish! Noah's blade moved in a beautiful arc that forced Hikari to retreat several steps. The strike carried power that surprised the experienced fighter, though Noah deliberately held back from his full capabilities. Thud! Thud! Hikari's feet hit the ground heavily as he regained his balance, his breathing already showing signs of exertion from the intense exchanges. Meanwhile, Noah's breathing remained steady and controlled. Whoosh! Clang! Swish! The pattern continued as Hikari pressed his attacks without growing desperate. It was clear that unlike some of the other contestants, Hikari was experienced and did not lose composure despite his inability to do any real damage. Each strike met Noah's blade with bone-jarring force, yet Noah absorbed the impacts without flinching, while Hikari felt every collision reverberate through his enhanced grip. Something's not right, Hikari thought with growing concern. My strikes should be affecting him more than this. Crack. Thwack. Noah began demonstrating more aggressive techniques, his blade work flowing between defensive parries and controlled offensive sequences. Swish. Clang. Whoosh. The crowd watched with growing fascination as the mysterious student began matching and then exceeding Hikari's technical displays. His form was flawless, his timing perfect, yet he seemed to be holding something back. Look at his stance, a spectator whispered in awe. He's not even fully committed to those attacks. Thwack. Crack. Hikari launched a desperate overhead strike with all his remaining strength, hoping to break through Noah's seemingly unshakable defense. Clang. The impact created a resounding crash that echoed across the venue, but Noah caught the strike on his blade and held it there effortlessly. Hikari pushed down with everything he had, yet couldn't budge Noah's position. Impossible, Hikari gasped, his eyes widening as he realized the vast difference in their actual strength levels. Whoosh! With a gentle twist of his wrist, Noah deflected Hikari's blade aside and touched his own sword tip to his opponent's chest. A clean, decisive finish that demonstrated complete control over the match's outcome. The referee stepped forward immediately. Winner, Noah Carter. The crowd erupted in appreciative applause, recognizing they had witnessed an exceptional match. Can you believe this is his first tournament? One spectator remarked with obvious amazement. Hikari has reached the semifinals 3 times before, and this newcomer just ended that streak completely. The technique was really good, added a retired swordsman. But it's his physical power and composure that's truly remarkable. Most first-time competitors show nerves against someone of Hikari's reputation. Did you see how he absorbed those impacts? Another observer noted with growing excitement. Hikari's strikes were landing clean, but Carter didn't even flinch. That level of physical conditioning is extraordinary. Master Tanaka has found himself a genuine prodigy, concluded a tournament sponsor. This young man could most certainly shock everyone in the upcoming matches. Noah approached Hikari for the traditional post-match acknowledgement, recognizing the skill his opponent had demonstrated despite the decisive outcome. That was excellent swordsmanship, Noah said with genuine respect. Your technique showed the countless years you spent in training. Well done. Hikari nodded with gracious acceptance despite his obvious disappointment. You're incredibly strong, Carter. I've never faced someone who could absorb impacts like that while maintaining such form. Thank you for the good match, Noah replied, understanding that Hikari's level 8 swordsmanship represented true talent by Earth's standards. If Hikari had been born in Esta with access to mana-rich environments and magical training resources, he might have reached adept rank capabilities. Unfortunately, Earth's limited magical foundation, sparse mana, and lack of enhancement resources created developmental ceilings that even dedicated practitioners couldn't overcome through effort alone. The disparity between worlds highlighted how the environment shaped potential as much as natural talent or determination. As Noah approached the stands where he had previously been standing, Ichigo waited for him with a grin spread across his face. That was incredible. The way you handled Hikari's combinations was like watching a master at work. And that final move where you just held his overhead strike. Bro, you were killing it. Noah rolled his eyes at the over-the-top praise that Ichigo was known for delivering after every performance he witnessed. You're exaggerating again, Noah replied with amused tolerance for Ichigo's tendency toward hyperbole. He patted Ichigo firmly on the back in a gesture of encouragement. Good luck with your fight. Don't underestimate that guy, Kenzo. He made it this far for a reason. The friendly pat sent Ichigo stumbling forward several steps. Noah's strength clearly caught his friend off guard, despite the casual nature of the gesture. Chill out, man, Ichigo protested with mock indignation as he regained his balance. Are you trying to injure me before my match starts, so we don't have to face each other in the semifinals? Noah laughed at the dramatic accusation. If I wanted to sabotage you, I'd come up with something more creative than a friendly pat, Noah replied with amusement. Besides, I'm looking forward to potentially facing you in the finals. it would make for an interesting match. The tournament announcer's voice echoed across the venue, calling for the final quarterfinal match to begin. Ichigo's expression shifted from playful complaint to focused determination as he prepared for his own challenging bout. "Time to show them what I've got," Ichigo declared whilst slapping both of his cheeks as a way of showing he was ready. Ichigo then started heading toward the competition area where his opponent, Kenzo, was already waiting. Soon enough, both contestants stood on the platform. Kenzo's wide smile remained on his face as he said, "My dear friend Ichigo, it's a great surprise for me to meet you this early on. I would have loved to meet you in the finals. But it seems like fate didn't have that in store for the both of us, so we shall work with what we have. What do you think?" Ichigo scratched the back of his head with an embarrassed smile. "Thanks, man. I didn't want to face you this early on either. Like you said, it's fate, and we can do nothing but give our best to make this match as enjoyable as possible to everyone watching." Kenzo nodded his head, agreeing with Ichigo's words. "Indeed, we can only do our best to make this match as enjoyable as possible. Right, do you remember what I said about these matches in the spring?" Ichigo placed his hand on his chin as if trying to remember. "Ah, you said something about how these matches show the true side of competitors?" Kenzo laughed before saying, "Yeah, sort of." Before both contestants could continue their conversation, the head referee walked to the platform and stood before them both. "Same rules as always, you have both fought 2 fights already. You would only lose when you lose your sword, having lower points when time runs out or when either of you decides to end the fight," the referee said, as he looked at Kenzo, who simply smiled in return. Ichigo nodded his head, the usual smile on his face replaced by a serious expression. Just like everyone else in this tournament, Ichigo was here to win. "Father, I will win this tournament for you. I hope you are watching," Ichigo thought, his brows knitting and his hands clenching unconsciously. For the first time since entering this resort, Noah, who was watching from the sidelines, spotted a truly resolute expression on Ichigo's face. The referee conducted thorough pre-match inspections, examining both contestants' equipment, clothing, and swords to ensure no tampering or cheating devices had been introduced. The meticulous process maintained the tournament's integrity and competitive fairness between all contestants. With all preparations complete, the referee positioned himself at the platform's edge and released a single leaf into the mountain air. The leaf caught the gentle breeze and began its slow descent towards the middle of the platform. The crowd held their collective breath, understanding that the match would begin the instant the leaf touched the ground. Tension filled the venue as spectators leaned forward in anticipation. Ichigo's eyes were fixed on the leaf as it began approaching the platform. As for Kenzo, he looked at leisurely. The leaf finally made contact with the platform floor, creating the softest sound that somehow seemed to echo across the entire venue. Both fighters exploded into motion simultaneously, their explosive reflexes and skill allowing them to react the moment the starting signal occurred. The distance between them vanished in an instant as they closed for immediate engagement. Clang! Their swords met in the center of the platform with tremendous force, metal grinding against metal, as both competitors pushed against each other in a test of pure strength and skill. Neither gave ground in the initial clash. Their weapons locked together as they sought to gain an advantage. The opening exchange revealed that both fighters possessed similar speed and reaction times, suggesting this match would be decided by technique, endurance, and strategic thinking rather than overwhelming physical superiority. Ichigo's expression remained focused, while Kenzo's expression showed a calm smile as they began what promised to be an amazing match in the tournament. Whoosh! Clang! Ichigo immediately broke the blade lock with a swift pivot, flowing into a horizontal slash aimed at Kenzo's ribs. The strike cut through the air, but Kenzo ducked under the attack and countered with an upward thrust toward Ichigo's exposed torso. Swish! Clang! Beautiful form from both fighters, one spectator called out. Look at that footwork. Ichigo deflected the thrust aside and immediately launched into an overhead strike, bringing his blade down with considerable force. Kenzo sidestepped at the last moment, the sword whistling past his ear. Thwack! The missed strike embedded briefly in the platform before Ichigo recovered, pulling back just as Kenzo's counterattack swept toward his midsection. "Ho ho, you did not disappoint me, Ichigo," Kenzo muttered to himself as he blocked the attack. Whoosh! Clang! "This is an incredible technique," another observer shouted. "Both fighters are incredibly skilled. I feel like one of them might become the champion." Another spectator shared his view on who might win the championship. "I don't think so, whilst they are incredibly skilled. Noah Carter is a real challenge. Have you seen the way he dominated Hikari with his strength? That man has a real sleeper build." The observer from earlier shook his head in disagreement. "Whilst I agree that Noah is most probably the strongest physically in this competition, I don't think he will win. Are you seeing this? I mean, just look at their footwork. I didn't see Noah pull anything like it during his 2 fights. Well, it's because he didn't need to. Why would you need to dodge attacks if you could simply block them with a casual strike?" The guy rooting for Noah countered. As both spectators argued whether Noah was going to win the championship or not, Noah watched the exchange between Kenzo and Ichigo with interest, recognizing the skill being displayed. They're both demonstrating level 9 swordsmanship. Initially, I didn't expect this caliber of skill, but as we've gone deeper into the tournament, contestants have been forced to reveal their true abilities. Noah muttered silently in admiration. Swish! Clang! Thwack! Kenzo executed a masterful feint, appearing to thrust low before redirecting into a diagonal cut that caught Ichigo off guard. Ichigo barely managed to parry, the impact sending vibrations through both blades. Ichigo took a step back, gaining some distance between himself and Kenzo, his will untarnished despite the close call. Whoosh! Clang! The pattern continued with increasing intensity. Kenzo pressed forward with a series of combination strikes. Thrust, horizontal slash, overhead chop, each flowing seamlessly into the next with textbook form. Clang! Clang! Swish! Ichigo defended admirably, but the sustained assault forced him to give ground a few times. Still, Ichigo's footwork remained clean as he retreated, never allowing Kenzo to fully capitalize on his aggressive momentum. "Excellent defensive positioning," a judge spoke approvingly. The judge beside him nodded his head in agreement. Indeed, to be able to fight that guy's student like this, for so long, this kid must really have an amazing talent. Thwack! Whoosh! Ichigo found his opening when Kenzo overextended slightly on a thrust. He sidestepped and launched a diagonal strike that forced Kenzo into an awkward backwards lean to avoid the blade. Swish! Clang! They're both showing remarkable endurance. Most fighters would be showing fatigue by now, but their conditioning is exceptional. Noah noted, impressed by their sustained high-level performance. Of course, that didn't mean that Kenzo's endurance or Ichigo's endurance were anywhere near Noah's. No, not at all. Noah's appreciation of their endurance came from the fact that they were humans who had simply pushed their bodies to the absolute limit. Whoosh! Clang! Thwack! The crowd was fully engaged now, calling out appreciation for particularly skillful exchanges. Both fighters had earned genuine respect through their technical displays and competitive spirit. Kenzo attempted another feint sequence, this time starting with an overhead motion before transitioning into a low sweep. Ichigo read the deception perfectly and jumped over the attack while bringing his own blade down in a controlled arc. Swish! Clang! These two have clearly been hiding their true capabilities until now, Noah reflected. The tournament format forces gradual revelation of skill levels as weaker opponents are eliminated. Whoosh! Clang! Thwack! The match had become a showcase of pure swordsmanship artistry, with both competitors pushing each other to demonstrate techniques that would have easily dominated earlier rounds. In an unexpected turn, Ichigo landed a devastating overhead strike that broke through Kenzo's defense completely. The wooden blade connected solidly with Kenzo's shoulder, sending a shockwave through his entire frame. Thwack! The impact clearly hurt Kenzo, making him stumble backwards several steps as he struggled to maintain his balance. His face contorted with pain from the clean hit. Sensing his advantage, Ichigo pressed forward with a follow-up combination, but the momentum vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Kenzo responded with a vicious diagonal slash that Ichigo barely managed to avoid, the blade whistling past his face by mere inches. Whoosh! Swish! Kenzo touched his lips and stared at the crimson drops on his fingertips. His expression shifted dramatically as something unhinged flickered in his eyes. Ha ha ha! Blood! You made me bleed! Kenzo laughed with disturbing hysteria, his voice carrying an edge that made the crowd look at him uncomfortably. Ichigo's worried expression reflected concern for his opponent's mental state. Are you okay, man? We can pause if you need. Okay, Kenzo shrieked, his laughter becoming more manic. Do you know how long it's been? I haven't bled in years. Whoosh! Clang! Without warning, Kenzo launched into a frenzied assault, his strikes now carrying lethal intent rather than competitive spirit. His blade work became erratic but dangerous, filled with murderous rage. Clang! Thwack! Swish! The crowd's enthusiastic cheering did not die down. Rather, it increased. The new match progression seemed to resonate with them more. This is getting more exciting, one spectator whispered. Noah frowned deeply at Kenzo's transformation. The fighter was no longer holding back or maintaining any pretense of controlled competition. He was clearly attempting to inflict serious injury or worse on Ichigo. Clang! Crack! Whoosh! Ichigo found himself forced to abandon his own restraint as Kenzo's attacks became increasingly vicious. Despite his enhanced defensive efforts, he was being outskilled by the person before him. The real issue wasn't Ichigo's impending loss. It was Kenzo's obvious intent to cause permanent damage through attacks that belonged in life-or-death combat rather than tournament competition. Thwack! Swish! This has gone too far, Noah muttered, recognizing that intervention might be necessary to prevent serious injury to his friend. Ichigo! That's enough! Throw in the towel! Noah shouted from the stands, his voice cutting through the arena noise. He could see clearly that Ichigo was operating at level 8 swordsmanship while Kenzo had reached the peak of level 9. This wasn't just a skill gap. Kenzo was no ordinary swordsman, and his unhinged state made him genuinely dangerous. Ichigo didn't reply, but his silence spoke volumes. He wasn't going to stop fighting. I can't stop, for father, Ichigo thought desperately as he parried increasingly difficult attacks, his defensive form beginning to deteriorate under the relentless assault. Clang! Thwack! Swish! The attacks began overwhelming Ichigo's defenses. Kenzo's blade found gaps in his guard, landing glancing blows that accumulated damage steadily. Blood began trickling from Ichigo's lips where a strike had connected. At the sight of fresh blood, Kenzo's hysteria intensified dramatically. Yes, more! Kenzo screamed with manic delight, his attacks becoming even more vicious. I want to see more red. Crack! Thwack! The crowd's earlier discomfort had transformed into bloodthirsty excitement. Rather than calling for intervention, spectators leaned forward with anticipation. This is what real competition looks like, one spectator shouted enthusiastically. Finally, someone who fights with genuine intensity, another called out approvingly. Make him bleed more, came voices from the audience, their civilized veneer dropping as violence escalated. Whoosh! Clang! Thwack! Ichigo's condition worsened rapidly as Kenzo's uncontrolled assault continued. More blood appeared on his face and arms from strikes that should have been controlled in tournament competition. The referee seemed paralyzed by an unknown reason, unsure whether to intervene in what the crowd was clearly enjoying despite its departure from normal competitive standards. Noah watched with growing alarm as his friend's safety deteriorated, while the audience cheered for more violence. Ichigo's body grew progressively weaker as damage accumulated from Kenzo's relentless assault. Each strike chipped away at his defensive capabilities while his opponent showed no signs of restraint. The judges observed with visible pity, their earlier interest replaced by some concern. He's just like his master. Forget it. The first judge muttered with resignation at Kenzo's actions. Another judge also sighed deeply, recognizing the futility of expecting Ichigo to surrender despite his deteriorating condition. Whoosh! Crack! Ichigo finally became unable to block effectively, and Kenzo delivered an incredibly powerful attack that landed squarely on his left arm. The battle blades were dulled to prevent fatal injuries, but they remained dangerous enough to cause serious harm. The impact connected with devastating force, and Ichigo's voice erupted in agony and pain. "Ayaha!" The scream tore from his throat. It was filled with the raw emotions he felt, both shock and pain that echoed across the entire venue. The sound carried the kind of anguish that made even bloodthirsty spectators wince involuntarily. Noah watched with clenched fists, his enhanced hearing making every note of Ichigo's suffering crystal clear. Over the past 2 days, he had genuinely grown to appreciate Ichigo's light-hearted personality. Someone without grudges or hidden agendas, just a simple, honest person. Yet this opponent that Ichigo had welcomed and spoken to naturally was now destroying him. The injuries he was trying to inflict were injuries that medicine couldn't simply heal back without any lingering effects. "Ichigo, you need to stop. You're going to sustain a career-ending injury." Noah insisted in fear for his new friend's condition. Whilst he could help Ichigo with any of the items he had in store, he didn't want to. He didn't want to reveal the items he had to anyone outside his immediate family or close friends. His words fell on deaf ears as Ichigo focused entirely on the attacks he could barely dodge or block. His concentration narrowed to pure survival. Thwack! Kenzo attacked again, deliberately targeting the exact same spot on Ichigo's injured arm. The accumulated damage was clearly intentional, a calculated effort to maximize harm. Noah cursed under his breath. The bastard was doing it on purpose, targeting the same location to ensure maximum injury rather than seeking clean victory. The fight dragged on for nearly 20 brutal minutes, far exceeding the duration of any previous quarterfinal match. What had begun as competitive swordsmanship had devolved into a prolonged beatdown. The spectators, judges, and remaining competitors who had advanced to the semifinals watched in tense silence. The referee found himself in an impossible position. Despite the obvious mismatch and accumulating injuries, Ichigo refused to concede defeat. He remained conscious and technically capable of continuing, which meant no authority could legally force him to stop under tournament rules. Ichigo's stubborn determination showed his courage and warrior spirit, but what might have been admirable in other circumstances had become dangerous. Each minute that passed increased the likelihood of permanent damage that could end his martial arts career entirely. Kenzo showed no mercy or sportsmanship, continuing his assault on the same injured areas with calculated cruelty that went far beyond competitive necessity. The prolonged suffering had transformed the match from sport into something resembling torture, leaving everyone present to witness Ichigo's increasingly desperate attempts to survive rather than win. Thwack! Clang! "This is beautiful!" Kenzo screamed hysterically as his blade found another opening. This is what competition truly means. No fake smiles, no pretending to be friends, just pure, honest violence. His eyes gleamed with manic intensity as he pressed his assault. "You welcomed me earlier, didn't you? Spoke to me like we were comrades. But look at us now. This is our real relationship. This is what warriors are beneath all the polite ceremony." Crack! Swish! Ichigo stumbled backwards, blood streaming from multiple wounds, but his voice remained steady despite his pain. You're wrong, Kenzo. Competition doesn't have to destroy who we are as people." "Lies!" Kenzo shrieked, his attacks becoming even more frenzied. "Every match strips away the masks we wear. Every strike reveals the beast underneath. You want to hurt me just as much as I want to hurt you. Don't be shy. Just admit it." Clang. Thwack. "No," Ichigo gasped, barely managing to deflect another vicious strike. "I don't want to hurt you. I just want to win." "That's not the same thing." "Win." Kenzo laughed maniacally. "Pretty word to hide the truth. We're animals fighting for dominance. Nothing more. This pain, this blood. This is the only honest thing between us." Whoosh! Crack! Another strike landed on Ichigo's already injured arm, eliciting another scream of agony. But even through his pain, Ichigo's response remained consistent with his character. Even if that's what you believe," Ichigo panted, I won't let this change who I am." Kenzo's hysterical laughter echoed through the arena. "Then your father was a fool, just like you." Hearing Kenzo twist his father's memory into a weapon, something inside Ichigo finally snapped. The easy smile he always wore, the one that softened his edges and disarmed strangers, shattered. In its place, flared something else had taken place. Ichigo's eyes no longer carried warmth. Rather, they carried a dangerous glint. Kenzo's insult hadn't just wounded him, it had desecrated his father's legacy. That outrage surged through Ichigo's veins, filling his body with raw, burning power. Technique vanished, replaced by an untamed fury that turned every movement into a killing strike. Clang! Whoosh! Thwack! For the first time in the match, Kenzo gave ground, unable to hold Ichigo's attacks. Ichigo's blade pressed forward with incredible force, the weight of his rage making up for the weakness of his battered arms. Each swing seemed to tear a piece of air itself, wild yet driven by the kind of intent that cared nothing for defense, nothing for restraint. Kenzo's response was not that of fear, but rather of exultation. He threw back his head, laughing, his voice cracking under the hysteria. "Yes, that's it. That's what I wanted. Show me the truth hiding beneath your mask. Everyone has that side to them. The only difference is the activation button." Crack, swish, clang. Gasps rippled through the stands. The duel that had seemed one-sided only moments ago changed rapidly. Ichigo's assault hammered Kenzo with raw force, pushing him onto the defensive for the first time. Where Kenzo's cruelty had once dictated the flow, now he met Ichigo's grief and rage, sharpened into violence. But fury is a fire that burns fast. Ichigo's strikes, once relentless, began to falter as time passed by. The pain in his arm crashed back into him like a wave. His shoulders sagged, his blade slowed, his guard sagged, leaving openings he could no longer close. Noah closed his eyes for a moment as if he could already see the next scene. His adrenaline has run out. He no longer has any fuel. He's done. Kenzo saw his chance. His blade came down in a vicious arc, smashing directly into Ichigo's already wounded arm. The sharp crack of bone breaking cut through the arena louder than the crowd's collective gasp. Crack! Ayaha! Ichigo's scream ripped from his throat as his sword fell from his grasp, skittering across the stone platform. Clink! Ichigo's arm dangled uselessly, bent at an unnatural angle that would never recover to its previous state again. The referee shot forward to the platform. His voice rang out, hard and commanding. "Match concluded. Medical team required." The medical team responded immediately. They had been on standby the whole time, knowing that Ichigo would need all the help he could when the match concluded. But Kenzo's frenzy had not burned out. His eyes bulged with manic hunger. His grin stretched too wide, and he lifted his sword again. Clang! Steel met steel. The referee's blade intercepted Kenzo's swing an instant before it could double down on the injury. The impact rattled the platform, a reverberation of authority clashing against madness. "That's enough!" the referee thundered, his voice booming. His weapon locked Kenzo's in place. "The match is over. Either stand down or be barred from ever stepping into this arena again." Kenzo lowered his weapon and the same smile returned to his face. "Oh, I apologize. I didn't know that the match has ended." His eyes landed on Ichigo before a look of shock appeared on his face. "Oh no! Is he okay?" The medical team stormed onto the platform with urgency, their white coats and armbands cutting starkly against the blood-stained arena floor. They worked quickly but carefully, easing Ichigo's limp, battered body onto a stretcher. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, each movement strained. The prolonged punishment, the fractured arm, and the countless strikes endured had finally forced his body into collapse. The crowd, still intoxicated by the brutality of the match, could not see the toll behind his closed eyelids, the silent cost of pushing beyond one's limits. A roar of applause erupted, shaking the stands as the stretcher was lifted. The audience had gotten exactly what they came for: a strong match. "This was the best fight yet," one man shouted, voice cracking with exhilaration. His hands clapped so hard they reddened. Both fighters gave everything they had. Ichigo's a real warrior. I'll bet he'll be back even stronger next time. Stronger? Another spectator retorted, frowning as his gaze lingered on Ichigo's twisted arm. He might never fight again. Broken bones like that don't always heal cleanly, not to mention the effects this fight would have on his mental state. His career could already be finished. Nonsense? A third fan scoffed, leaning over the railing with a grin. Medical tech these days is leagues ahead of what it used to be. Fighters like him recover fast. He'll be ready by the next tournament. You'll see. Their voices mingled into a heated chorus, admiration, doubt, and blind faith colliding above the stretcher as the medics prepared to rush Ichigo out of the arena. Then, movement on the platform drew every eye. Noah vaulted effortlessly onto the stage, his landing so smooth it was almost predatory. The referee stepped forward to block him, but froze under the weight of Noah's stare. A gaze so sharp and cold it rooted the official to the spot like prey caught in a predator's sights. The noise from the stands faltered into uneasy quiet as Noah crossed the blood-slick floor. His boots left faint impressions beside the crimson stains. At the center, Kenzo stood with his shoulders heaving, eyes fixed on the blood beneath his feet. His earlier frenzy seemed to drain out of him all at once, leaving only shock and an almost childlike disbelief at what his hands had wrought. Noah stopped a step away. When he spoke, his voice was low, yet carried effortlessly across the hushed arena, each word deliberate, edged with steel. Hey you, listen carefully. You better pray you don't face me in the next round. Because if you do, I'll make sure you regret entering this competition. Kenzo's head snapped up, confusion warring with defiance in his eyes. His lips curled into something between a sneer and a nervous grin. Oh? Are you threatening me, then, Noah? I thought we were best friends. We even shared the natural spring together. Call it whatever you want, Noah replied, his calm more frightening than rage could ever be. You like to fight until the bitter end, don't you? Then we'll see how long that courage lasts, when you're the one breaking under the pain. The arena was utterly silent. Even the spectators, who had moments ago reveled in violence, now looked uneasily. Something in Noah's tone, an almost merciless certainty, made the threat feel less like bravado and more like destiny. A storm had been set in motion, and everyone knew the semifinal would no longer be just a match. It would be a reckoning. Did you hear that? Noah just threatened Kenzo right in front of everyone, one spectator whispered sharply, leaning toward his friend. His eyes gleamed with anticipation. This tournament just got way more interesting. That wasn't just a threat, another fan replied, voice lowered as if afraid Noah might somehow hear. It felt like a promise. The way he said it, it gave me chills. A group of younger fans shouted over the growing hum of voices, their enthusiasm unrestrained. Yes, that's what we're here for. Drama, grudges, and payback. The semi-finals are going to be insane. After delivering his warning, Noah turned on his heel and walked away with steady, calm steps. Each movement radiated composure, yet the weight of his presence lingered behind him like an oppressive shadow. The stunned silence that followed pressed down on everyone present, thick and suffocating, as though the arena itself had forgotten how to breathe. The referee finally stirred, blinking rapidly as if waking from a trance. His hands quivered as he lowered them to his sides, the echoes of that moment replaying in his mind. What was that? His gaze, the way he looked at me, he made me freeze as if I were prey facing an apex predator. The referee thought, a chill running through him. He had watched Noah's quarterfinal match and had admired his control, his crisp movements, and his evident talent. Yet what had just happened was something entirely different. The young fighter had projected an aura so intense and predatory that it stripped away any illusion of safety. The calm boy he had seen earlier seemed like a mask, hiding a far more dangerous reality. The referee's career had exposed him to champions, brawlers, and prodigies. He had stood in the middle of countless matches where fighters radiated confidence, fury, or determination. None of that compared to this. What Noah had displayed was not ordinary intimidation but a menace that paralyzed without a single strike. He has been holding back far more than his technique, the referee realized, his throat tightening with unease. There is something deeper inside him, something that cannot be measured by skill alone. The clarity of that thought shook him. He had misjudged Noah entirely. The boy he had written off as a promising newcomer was not simply skilled or disciplined. Whatever Noah truly was, he had transcended the category of a mere competitor. And if that power was ever fully unleashed, the referee was no longer certain anyone in the tournament could stand against it, not even the demon standing next to him. Of course, the referee had no intention of telling Kenzo that. Instead, he kept the earlier feeling to himself, not telling a nobody around him. Yet, Noah left the entire arena without looking back, understanding there was nothing more for him to accomplish there. The semifinals would occur tomorrow, and today's events had concluded in the worst possible way. He followed the medical team to the resort's emergency facility, which was equipped with comprehensive first aid capabilities. However, even their advanced equipment wasn't sufficient to properly treat Ichigo's severe injuries. The emergency room could only provide temporary stabilization. Ichigo needed immediate transfer to a fully equipped hospital for proper orthopedic surgery and extended care. As Noah waited outside the treatment room, one of the medical staff emerged and approached him directly. "Sorry, contestant Noah Carter, but you can't remain here. Ichigo's condition doesn't allow visitors at this time, and he requires an environment free from any disturbances." Noah didn't argue with the medical staff. He simply nodded with understanding before departing the medical area. The nearest hospital was nearly 2 hours away, meaning any specialized medical transport would require significant time to arrive and complete the transfer. "I'll return later to check on his condition," Noah thought as he made his way back toward his accommodations. Inside his room, Noah activated the portal and returned to his shop, needing to check on Lola's training progress and process the day's troubling events. Ichigo's stubborn refusal to surrender, combined with Kenzo's sadistic escalation, had created a situation that highlighted the dangerous intersection between honor, pride, and genuine harm. Inside the shop, Noah found Lola still deeply engaged in her training regimen, her focus unwavering despite the hours that had passed. "She's really working hard," Noah thought with a soft smile of appreciation. Lola had been training constantly since he had left her the day before, demonstrating the kind of dedication that explained how she had originally achieved Grandmaster rank through personal effort rather than artificial enhancement. Leo spotted Noah's arrival and immediately rose from his curled position beside Lola, walking toward him silently to avoid disturbing her concentration. Noah gestured for Leo to remain quiet before leading him upstairs to discuss Lola's training without interrupting her progress. Leo nodded with understanding and followed his father to the second floor. Once they were safely away from Lola's meditation area, Noah asked quietly, "Did she take any breaks during my absence?" "No, father," Leo replied with obvious admiration. "She took no breaks at all." "I see," Noah nodded, impressed by her commitment to strengthening herself for their upcoming mission. Noah then walked toward the idle room, deciding to use his remaining time productively by advancing his photographic memory skill. The ability was currently at level 2, and based on his previous training experiences, each level would require approximately 1 hour of focus development. To reach level 5 would require 3 hours of training at the rate of $1,000 per hour. Without hesitation, he accessed the skill interface and authorized the 3-hour training session for a total cost of $3,000. The investment would provide significant cognitive enhancement that could prove invaluable for his daily life and training. The skill was incredibly helpful, and Noah believed that it would help him a lot. It wasn't an offensive skill, but its support capability made it even more useful than an offensive skill. After placing his new skill in idle training, Noah simply sat down and decided to start practicing himself. Currently, his status was the following. Host: Noah Carter. Age 28. Shop level 2. Daily revenue: $2,153,000 or equivalent. Current assets: $22,210,840. Shop points: 32,890. Attributes: Strength, 90, Vitality, 140, Intelligence, 90, Agility, 90. Skills: Level 12, Smiley Face Swordsmanship. Level 11, Smiley Face Body Tempering, Wind Manipulation, Mana Control, Aura. Level 3, Smiley Face Surviving on Ramen, Cooking, Finance, Gaming. Level 2, Smiley Face Programming Photographic Memory. Level 1, Smiley Face Fire Manipulation. His financial assets had remained stable from the previous day, except for the addition of his daily reward received that morning. The automated income had provided $1,851,500 along with an amulet of protection and another Eye of Apollo. With 3 Eyes of Apollo now in his possession, Noah decided he no longer needed the additional unit. He decided that from the next daily reward, he would swap it for its monetary equivalent of $150,000, adding to his liquid assets. Lola had been training continuously since the ceasefire began, which meant she was no longer managing shop sales. Noah didn't mind the reduced income. He had specifically instructed her to avoid selling the high-tier items that could strengthen their potential enemies further. The strategic decision to limit sales made sense given their precarious situation. Both elven factions were preparing for the upcoming auction, and providing them with additional enhancements would only complicate the delicate balance Noah was trying to maintain. The only items he might have permitted for sale were basic products like bread and iced tea, which provided useful but not game-changing benefits. However, even if those remained unsold, the impact on his overall financial position would be negligible. His focus had shifted from maximizing daily profits to ensuring their survival and mission success. The World Tree expedition required careful preparation rather than aggressive commerce, making Lola's dedicated training far more valuable than potential sales revenue. The temporary reduction in shop operations represented a strategic investment in their future capabilities, rather than a missed business opportunity. Time to start practicing, Noah thought to himself as he sat down on the floor. He decided to train for the next 3 hours. Once those 3 hours passed, about an hour and a half would have passed in the real world. Then, Noah can return to the resort and check up on Ichigo. Noah decided that he would try to sneak into the room to give Ichigo a loaf of bread. The bread would significantly help with his recovery without being too suspicious. Noah couldn't just give him a beef jerky that would boost his vitality by an incredibly large amount that his broken hands might simply heal in a few minutes. That would be too miraculous. As for the bread, whilst its effects were still incredible, it was less obvious. For the next 3 hours, Noah committed himself fully to training, cycling through several disciplines to sharpen his foundation. Swordsmanship remained off the schedule. The cramped space on the second floor made wide swings and footwork drills impossible, and he refused to waste time on half measures. Instead, he began with mana control, knowing it would yield the greatest return on effort. Improving his grasp over mana would strengthen the intelligence attribute itself, raising not only his raw magical power but also his capacity for refined spellwork. A stronger core of control would allow every other magical skill to grow more efficiently. He broke the session into 3 equal segments: 1 hour for mana control, 1 for wind manipulation, and 1 for body tempering. The order was planned for efficiency, each practice complementing the others. He wanted to practice everything without leaving one behind. Even if his 1-hour training didn't yield immediate results, it would soon enough. Settling into a meditative stance, Noah let his breathing fall into rhythm until every thought stilled. The world around him receded, leaving only the steady pulse of mana inside his body. He traced its flow through his pathways, moving it in slow cycles. With careful intent, he pressed against sections not yet fully opened, coaxing them to expand. It was a slow and delicate process, like persuading a locked door to give way rather than forcing it with brute strength. Minutes blurred together as he guided the current through him. The first hour passed in silence, his concentration unbroken. When he opened his eyes at last, a brief flicker of reality returned. He checked for a change, but no notification about mana control had arrived. Rather, one about his photographic memory had. Your skill photographic memory has reached level 3. Noah wasn't disheartened. It was expected. Once a skill reached level 10, the demands for reaching the next level required 4 hours of focused work at a minimum, sometimes a little less depending on the environment. What he had just completed counted as progress, but not enough to push the threshold to level 12. Sensing his awareness, Leo stirred. The young lion blinked drowsily before letting out a low, rumbling roar, the sound more affectionate than fierce. He shifted closer and pressed his broad head against Noah's side. A smile softened Noah's face. He ran his fingers through Leo's mane, the golden strands thicker and longer than they had been only weeks ago. The lion's growth was astonishing, though it came as no surprise. Between the rich environment and the flow of magic nourishing him daily, Leo thrived as if every moment pulled him toward maturity. "You're getting bigger every day," Noah murmured, voice low and steady. The words carried not just observation but pride. Leo's eyes narrowed in contentment as he purred, the vibration resonating faintly through Noah's arm. After a few moments, the beast lowered his head again and stretched out, his presence steady and reassuring. The second stage of his training was about to begin. Noah transitioned from mana control to wind manipulation, retrieving one of the numerous wind orbs from his storage ring. The Tier 5 artifact pulsed with contained elemental essence as he settled back into his meditative position. He closed his eyes and allowed his consciousness to merge with the orb's swirling energies. The familiar sensation of wind essence flowing through his magical pathways brought immediate comfort, like reconnecting with an old friend. Wind manipulation at level 11 required an increasingly sophisticated understanding of air current dynamics, pressure differentials, and elemental resonance patterns. Noah focused on expanding his control beyond simple directional movement toward more complex applications. He practiced creating sustained air barriers, manipulating multiple wind streams simultaneously, and generating precise pressure changes that could affect both offense and defense in combat situations. The training demanded intense concentration as he pushed his elemental mastery toward new levels of sophistication. Each technique was built upon previous foundations while introducing increasingly challenging applications that would prove invaluable during their dangerous journey. Leo remained quietly supportive nearby, his presence providing reassurance without distraction as Noah delved deeper into more advanced wind magic theory and practical application. The hour passed with steady progress as Noah's understanding of wind manipulation expanded incrementally, bringing him closer to the next skill level that would unlock even more powerful elemental techniques. Soon enough, a notification signaled his hour passing. "Your skill photographic memory has reached level 4. A smile erupted across Noah's face at the successful advancement before he transitioned to his most dreaded training routine. Body tempering was undoubtedly his most exhausting practice, subjecting his physical form to intense stress as he used mana to push his body beyond normal limitations. The technique required him to channel magical energy through his muscles, bones, and organs in ways that created controlled strain designed to strengthen his constitution over time. Unlike the peaceful meditation of mana control or the flowing sensations of wind manipulation, body tempering felt like voluntary torture. Unfortunately, it was the only way he could currently improve his body in the fastest way possible. Noah gritted his teeth and began the process of circulating mana through his physical form, creating internal pressure that made every muscle fiber protest. His vitality helped him endure the discomfort, but the training remained genuinely unpleasant regardless of his improved constitution. Leo watched with concern as his father's expression contorted with discomfort, recognizing the signs of the training method that always seemed to cause Noah visible distress. The hour stretched ahead like an endurance trial, but Noah persevered with the knowledge that he could never have enough vitality in this world. Even if he had Lola to protect him, Noah wanted to have his own strength that he could rely on. He didn't like to rely on others. It made him feel weak. Sure, accepting the help of those close to him every once in a while wasn't a bad thing, but continuously asking for help made him feel hopeless just like before. He didn't do so when he was at rock bottom, being chased by debt collectors, and he certainly won't do so now. Your skill photographic memory has reached level 5 max. Your skill photographic memory has reached level 5 max. Reading through the notification, Noah looked confused. He knew for certain that skills could advance beyond level 5. His own swordsmanship at level 12 and other skills at level 11 served as clear evidence of higher progression possibilities. System: why does this show maximum level when I have other skills well above level 5? Noah asked with obvious puzzlement. Skills have individual level caps that vary based on their nature and complexity. Some skills reach their maximum potential earlier, while others can advance much higher. Photographic memory caps at level 5, representing perfect visual recall abilities. I see. Noah acknowledged the explanation before asking a question. What about my programming skill? Programming skill also has a maximum level of 5. Noah nodded with understanding. The limitation made logical sense. Certain skills like photographic memory had natural ceilings where additional levels wouldn't provide meaningful improvement. Perfect recall was perfect regardless of whether it was called level 5 or level 50. Combat and magical skills like swordsmanship, mana control, and wind manipulation possessed much higher potential ceilings because they involved increasingly sophisticated techniques and applications that could continue developing indefinitely. Meanwhile, more specialized or technical skills like programming and photographic memory reached their practical limits much earlier, representing mastery rather than infinite progression. The distinction helped him understand his development path better and plan future training priorities accordingly. Noah headed downstairs to find Lola still deep in her training regimen. Rather than disturbing her concentrated practice, he quietly gathered several loaves of bread and other items from the shelves before using the portal to return to Earth. He made his way to the medical facility where Ichigo was being treated, hoping to check on his friend's condition after the brutal tournament match. Inside the room, Ichigo lay in the infirmary bed with his eyes now open, looking pale but alert. A medical staff member remained present to monitor his condition and respond to any complications. Noah knocked on the door, prompting the medical attendant to emerge into the hallway. I'm sorry, but visitors aren't allowed at this time, the staff member explained with professional courtesy. The patient needs complete rest for proper recovery. From inside the room, Ichigo's voice called out weakly but clearly. It's okay. Let him in. Please don't worry about it. The medical staff member hesitated, clearly torn between protocol and the patient's wishes. Sir, the regulations are in place for your safety and recovery. Please, Ichigo insisted with as much strength as he could muster. Just 5 minutes. I want to see my friend. After a moment of internal debate, the staff member reluctantly agreed. 5 minutes only. Any signs of fatigue or distress, and the visit ends immediately. Noah nodded with understanding and entered the room. Noah and Ichigo spoke with the easy familiarity of old friends despite their brief acquaintance. I want to reprimand you for being so stubborn out there, but you're still in bad condition, so I'll hold off, Noah said with gentle concern. How are you feeling? Ichigo managed to smile despite his obvious pain. I'm all right. Noah nodded, studying his friend's condition before addressing the difficult reality they both understood. You know what this means, right? Of course, Noah was referring to the likelihood that Ichigo might never return to his peak competitive condition after such severe injuries. Ichigo nodded with a smile on his face. It means I need to bounce back from this and start training once I get better. Noah looked at him silently, recognizing the hurt beneath Ichigo's words. The facade of cheerful determination was slipping, revealing the genuine pain of someone whose martial arts dreams had potentially been shattered. The broken arm, accumulated damage, and trauma from such a brutal beating would require extensive recovery time, and there was no guarantee that full competitive capability could be restored. Many fighters never returned to their previous level after injuries this severe. Noah could see that Ichigo was struggling to maintain his characteristic optimism while confronting the possibility that his career might be over before it had truly begun. The silence stretched between them as both acknowledged the unspoken truth about the long, uncertain road ahead. Noah broke the silence by asking Ichigo a personal question. How do you feel about that bastard? What would you want to happen to him? Ichigo looked at the ceiling before sighing deeply. I don't wish anything on him, neither bad nor good. Noah studied Ichigo for a moment, He wasn't certain whether this was complete truth or a partial lie, but he chose not to use the Eye of Apollo. There was no need to verify every statement. Sometimes things should simply unfold naturally without dissecting every nuance. Ichigo continued after a pause. Had you asked me this question right after he cursed my father, I would have told you to break his legs. But now, I don't feel much of anything toward him. He shifted slightly in the hospital bed, wincing at the movement. While he did break my arm, he made it clear he would if I didn't give up. I didn't surrender, so I can only blame my own weakness. Had I been stronger, I would have stopped him. Noah observed the mixture of resignation and self-blame in Ichigo's words. His friend seemed to be processing the trauma by accepting responsibility rather than directing anger outward, a response that was both mature and potentially concerning in its complete absence of justified resentment. The conversation revealed how deeply the experience had affected Ichigo's perspective. Noah glanced toward the doorway where the medical staff member was clearly keeping watch. I think our friend out there is about to escort me out with security if I stay much longer. Ichigo laughed before wincing at the sudden pain he felt from laughing. Noah immediately held off his mouth. Then, he placed a black bag on the bedside table with careful positioning. This is my parting gift. Eat it well, the sooner the better, Ichigo. I hope you recover quickly. It's not much, just a loaf of bread, but a really tasty 1-inch. Ichigo's eyes brightened slightly at the gesture. You bet I will. I'm actually hungry right now, so I'll eat it soon. We should exchange contacts, Ichigo added with a slight smile. I just realized we haven't done that yet. They quickly shared phone numbers, with Noah entering his information into Ichigo's device since his friend's mobility was limited by the injuries. Take care of yourself, Noah said as he prepared to leave. And actually listen to the medical staff this time instead of being stubborn. I'll try, Ichigo replied with a weak chuckle. Fine. You can ignore them if they tell you to not eat my bread, but apart from that, you should listen. I'm trying to help you other here by giving you a leeway into being stubborn. Noah departed the room with both of them laughing. Outside, he nodded to the medical attendant who had been patiently waiting in the hallway. The staff member's relieved expression suggested they were grateful the visit had concluded without incident. As he walked away from the medical facility, Noah felt satisfied that he had provided what help he could while respecting the boundaries necessary for Ichigo's recovery. Having visited Ichigo, Noah no longer carried any lingering obligations at the resort. With nothing left to hold him there, he returned to his room, summoned the portal, and stepped through into the familiar interior of his shop. The first thing he did was check on Lola. She remained immersed in training, her focus unbroken, the soft sound of her breathing filling the air. The sight did not surprise him. Not much time had passed since he last saw her, and progress at her level demanded persistence rather than haste. Satisfied that she was committed, Noah turned his attention to his own path. He could have trained at the resort, yet he preferred the shop for reasons that went beyond comfort. The mana density here far surpassed that of the resort, each breath drawing an energy that seeped directly into his body. The atmosphere itself carried a quiet serenity that sharpened his concentration. More importantly, within these walls, he faced no risk of interruption. The shop was his domain, both sanctuary and forge, and every session here carried him further than hours spent elsewhere. He lowered himself into a seated position, straightened his spine, and closed his eyes. Mana gathered at his call, drawn by the abundance in the air. Noah cycled through his regimen, shifting from one skill to another with a calm rhythm. Mana control came first, a steady circulation that polished the channels of his body. Wind manipulation followed, his senses sharpening as he tested finer adjustments to flow and pressure. Then, his body tempering training, his body hardening under the weight of circulating energy. Time slipped from his awareness. Each repetition carried him deeper into focus, every small improvement stacking on the last. The rich environment amplified his progress, while the countless hours of accumulated practice gave him a solid foundation to build upon. The rhythm of advancement took hold, and Noah surrendered himself to it completely. When he finally drew a long breath and opened his eyes, 9 hours had vanished. The passage of time felt almost unreal, as though the world beyond the shop had stood still while he worked. His body thrummed with fatigue, yet underneath the weariness lay a profound sense of accomplishment. Noah could feel it in the strengthened flow of mana within him, in the sharpened control of his techniques, and in the certainty that he had stepped closer to the strength he sought. Your skill body tempering has reached level 12. Your skill mana control has reached level 12. Your skill wind manipulation has reached level 12. Your skill aura has reached level 12. The simultaneous advancement across multiple skills represented significant progress toward adept rank capabilities. Each skill reaching level 12 brought Noah closer to his goals of becoming strong enough to protect himself. Unfortunately, he was still far away from being able to do so. The training session had yielded clear progress, yet Noah knew he had not reached his limit for the day. He resolved to continue, but prudence guided him to pause first. Hours of concentrated effort had drained both mind and body. Enhanced though his physique might be, he remained a mortal, bound to the same needs as anyone else. Sustained peak performance demanded rest as much as exertion. He opened his shop inventory and withdrew a small meal. A piece of bread still warm with its magical freshness, and 2 bottles of iced tea. Sitting cross-legged, he tore into the bread and washed it down with a long pull from the first bottle. Ah! The cool liquid slid down his throat, a reliever of the fatigue clouding his senses. Its taste was as good as always, and its refreshing quality delivered instant satisfaction. When the bottle ran dry, he set it aside and reached for the second. He did not drink it for the effects it had, but simply because he liked the flavor and wanted to feel refreshed. Leo, alert to the meal, perked up and padded closer. Noah offered him another bottle, and the lion accepted eagerly. Tilting his head back, Leo swallowed the contents in a single gulp. A low purr rumbled through his chest as his eyes softened, the sound of his contentment filling the room more vividly than words could. Noah chuckled quietly and gave the young beast a fond scratch along the neck. The bond between them deepened in moments like these, when simple companionship felt as vital as any training exercise. 10 minutes passed in quiet silence, enough for the magical nutrition to take effect and for tension to loosen from Noah's muscles. His breathing steadied, and the weariness in his mind receded. Though short, the break had left him sharper and steadier than before. He rose and returned to his training spot, lowering himself into the familiar position once more. A clear mind, a body restored, and a companion close at hand. These formed the foundation for continued growth. Noah exhaled slowly, gathering focus, and prepared to dive back into his regimen with renewed concentration. In what felt like an instant, another 16 hours vanished into the current of training. When Noah finally surfaced from his deep focus, his eyes opened to a cascade of glowing notifications. Your skill body tempering has reached level 13. Your skill mana control has reached level 13. Your skill wind manipulation has reached level 13. Your skill aura has reached level 13. He let out a measured breath, absorbing the meaning of the results. 24 hours had passed in the shop since he began this cycle. The idle room was no longer on cooldown. It was open again, ready for use in another round of advancement. In the outside world, however, only half that time had slipped away. The dimensional time ratio had worked exactly as intended, giving him the luxury of progress without sacrificing too much of the real-world schedule. A faint rustle drew his attention. Leo stirred from his nap, golden mane shifting as he lifted his head up. The young lion blinked once before speaking with his usual blunt candor. "Father, you might want to know this. Lola came to visit you about 6 hours ago. She watched you train in silence for a while, then went back to her own practice." Noah's lips curved into a quiet smile. So that was her game. The succubus had concealed herself well, slipping past his senses despite his heightened awareness. Her mastery of concealment lived up to its reputation at the archmage level. That she had chosen to observe instead of interrupt said something about her respect, or perhaps her mischief. Either way, he found the gesture amusing. She had done the same thing he did, not interrupting the other person whilst training. With his core skills raised in unison, Noah turned his thoughts toward the discipline that lagged behind. Swordsmanship rested at level 12, a full step lower than the others. He could not allow an imbalance like that to persist. His swordsmanship skill was an incredibly important skill. It allowed him to increase both his strength and agility attributes, which was really good. He rose to his feet and walked toward the idle room, his mind already set. The interface shimmered to life as he keyed in the parameters. 4 hours of concentrated swordsmanship training. The cost was $400,000. A steep price, but one he considered well worth paying. Balanced development mattered more than money. He had plenty of money now anyway, so money wasn't an issue. Once the program was locked into place, the automated system claimed the task. Noah no longer needed to guide each motion himself. The idle room would imprint the training directly, hammering efficiency into every swing, every stance, every shift of his footwork. Relieved of that burden, Noah stepped back. His body remained weary but steady, honed by a full day of training. Now he could relax. As the idle room worked for him in the background, Noah had returned back to his resort. He wanted to sleep after a full day's worth of training. While Noah was training his various skills, Ichigo had been transported to the main hospital for proper medical treatment. During the ambulance ride, he remembered the black bag Noah had left for him and decided to sample the bread his friend had provided. Ichigo unwrapped the golden loaf with his functioning hand and took a cautious bite. "Oh my!" His eyes widened in shock. This is bread? This tastes like it was baked in love, as they say. Whatever tastes good must have love as its ingredient. He devoured another bite with exaggerated enthusiasm, making sounds that would have embarrassed him under normal circumstances. MMMPH, how is this possible? It's like my taste buds are having a first-time experience, Ichigo declared to the bemused paramedic. I've eaten bread before, but this is art. The paramedic watched with concern as Ichigo consumed the entire loaf with appreciation, worried that pain medication might be causing unusual behavior. It would be a lie if the paramedic did not think about that loaf and its taste. Unfortunately, he was able to AKS him about it. As Ichigo finished the bread, he noticed a pleasant warmth spreading through his body. His injured arm seemed to throb less painfully, and his overall discomfort diminished noticeably. Must be the endorphins from eating something so delicious, Ichigo reasoned, attributing the improvement felt to simple pleasure rather than magical properties. Who in their right mind would think that the bread they just ate healed people instantaneously? At the hospital, the medical team immediately began comprehensive examinations to assess the full extent of his injuries. Dr. Yumi, the orthopedic specialist, conducted x-rays and physical assessments without leaving anything. Of course, Ichigo would have to, After reviewing the imaging results, Dr. Yumi emerged from the examination room with a puzzled expression and approached the transport medics. I need to clarify something about this patient's condition, Dr. Yumi said, consulting his clipboard. Your report indicates a complete fracture of the radius with potential nerve damage and extensive soft tissue trauma. The lead paramedic nodded confidently. That's correct, doctor. We witnessed the injury occur during the tournament. The bone break was clearly audible, and the patient showed all signs of severe trauma. He had also lost consciousness for a few minutes. Dr. Yumi's frown deepened. That's impossible. The X-rays show only minor fractures that appear to be healing remarkably well. The soft tissue inflammation is minimal, and there's no evidence of the severe damage described in your report. The paramedics exchanged shocked glances, their professional assessment shaken. There's no way, the lead medic protested. We documented everything carefully. The arm was clearly broken, and the patient was unconscious from pain and trauma. I've been doing this for 15 years, added his partner. I know a compound fracture when I see one. That arm was destroyed. Dr. Yumi reviewed the medical transport documentation again, comparing it against his examination findings. Either your initial assessment was completely incorrect, or this patient has experienced the most remarkable spontaneous healing I've ever encountered. Later, Dr. Yumi sat down with Ichigo to explain the confusing situation. "Young man, I have some surprising news about your injuries," the doctor began carefully. "The damage appears far less severe than initially reported. You have minor fractures that should heal completely within a few months with proper care." Ichigo's mouth fell open in genuine shock. But my arm was broken. I heard it snap. I passed out from the pain. "According to the X-rays, you'll make a full recovery with minimal rehabilitation required," Dr. Yumi continued. "It's truly remarkable. I've never seen anything like it in my career." Ichigo stared at his bandaged arm in complete bewilderment, unable to comprehend how such severe injuries could have improved so dramatically. The possibility that Noah's bread had played any role in his recovery never crossed his mind. After all, it was just bread, albeit the most delicious bread he'd ever experienced. Daily income stream. $2001, 500 has been awarded. Daily income stream. Amulet of Protection has been awarded. Host, Noah Carter. Age 28. Shop level 2. Daily revenue. $2, 153000 or equivalent. Current assets. $23,161,340. Shop points. 32,890. Attributes. Strength. 90. Vitality. 140. Intelligence. 90. Agility. 90. Skills. Level 13, Smiley Face, Swordsmanship, Body Tempering, Wind Manipulation, Mana Control, Aura. Level 5, Smiley Face, Photographic Memory. Level 3, Smiley Face, Surviving on Ramen, Cooking, Finance, Gaming. Level 2, Smiley Face, Programming. Noah reviewed his updated status with satisfaction. His automakers remained at previous production levels since he hadn't conducted any sales during the Elven ceasefire, but his personal development had advanced dramatically. The idle room training had successfully brought his swordsmanship up to level 13, eliminating the gap between his combat and magical skills. All his primary abilities now operated at the same tier, creating balanced capabilities that would serve him well during dangerous situations. His attributes had reached impressive levels across all categories, with vitality leading at 140 points, a significant improvement from his earlier weakness in that area. The balanced 90-point distribution in strength, intelligence, and agility provided versatility for both magical and physical challenges. With over $23 million in assets and nearly 33,000 shop points accumulated, Noah possessed substantial resources for future investments and upgrades. The daily income stream of over $2 million ensured continued financial growth even during periods of reduced sales activity. The combination of his increasing skills, balanced attributes, and substantial wealth positioned him well for the upcoming World Tree Expedition and whatever challenges awaited in higher-level worlds, once his system could be upgraded. Currently, Noah possessed 4 amulets of protection, which represented a substantial defensive arsenal. With these, he could equip himself with one, provide another to his father for protection, and still maintain 2 spares for future distribution. Noah had no intention of converting the amulet income stream to monetary value. Once he accumulated enough protective artifacts, he could distribute them to his entire family, ensuring the safety of his cousin, Aunt May, and anyone else he cared about on Earth. The peace of mind from knowing his loved ones were protected far outweighed any financial considerations. Noah stepped out of his resort room after completing his morning routine and preparing for the day ahead. He had showered, dressed appropriately for competition, and mentally prepared himself for what lay ahead. Today marked the semifinals, and his focus had crystallized into a singular purpose: facing Kenzo and holding him accountable for his brutal treatment of Ichigo. The memory of his friend's screams and the sadistic pleasure Kenzo had taken in inflicting unnecessary damage fueled Noah's determination. The tournament had evolved beyond simple competition into something more personal. His combat experience positioned him well for the encounter ahead, one that would likely determine not just tournament advancement, but justice for his injured friend. Noah consumed a loaf of bread as he walked toward the central platform where the arena matches took place. The competitor field had been dramatically reduced, Only 4 fighters remained from the original tournament bracket. Liam, Noah, Kenzo, and Hiroshi had survived the elimination rounds to reach the semifinals. Each represented different fighting philosophies and skill levels that had proven effective against previous opposition. Noah's eyes widened as he spotted a familiar figure among the spectators. Master Tanaka was there, observing the proceedings with a satisfied smile on his face. The old swordmaster's presence suggested he had come specifically to witness Noah's continued advancement through the tournament ranks. Their eyes met briefly across the venue, and Master Tanaka offered a subtle nod of acknowledgement. Recognition between teacher and student that transcended formal instruction. The gesture carried approval and perhaps curiosity about how Noah's mysteriously accelerated development would perform against elite-level competition. The reduced number of competitors created a more intimate atmosphere compared to earlier rounds. The remaining fighters represented the tournament's highest caliber of swordsmanship, making each match a potential showcase of advanced technique and tactical sophistication. Noah's focus remained fixed on the upcoming confrontation with Kenzo, though he recognized that reaching the finals would require defeating whoever emerged from the other semi-final match. The path to victory demanded sustained excellence rather than a single moment of justice. The referee addressed the spectators and remaining competitors with ceremonial authority, his voice cutting across the venue with a weight that came from long practice and tradition. Ladies and gentlemen, we now arrive at the semi-final stage of this prestigious tournament. 4 exceptional swordsmen stand before us, having endured the elimination rounds through skill, willpower, and the refinement of their technique. Tomorrow, one among them will seize the honor of champion. He extended an arm toward the competitors, his gesture deliberate and respectful, as though acknowledging not only their victories, but also the ordeals that had shaped them. These 4 warriors represent the highest standard of competitive swordsmanship. Each has displayed mastery that lifts them above their peers, and each has earned the right to stand at the threshold of the final stage. Today, the matches will decide who will advance to contend for the ultimate prize. A pause followed, long enough for the weight of his words to settle. The silence sharpened anticipation until the audience seemed to lean as one body toward the arena floor. Let us discover how fate chooses to align our semi-finalists. He approached a ceremonial bowl set upon a low stand at the center of the stage. Inside rested 4 numbered balls, which were of the same white color. The referee stirred them with slow, deliberate motions, the sound of wood against glass carrying faintly in the charged stillness. Every movement spoke of ritual, as though chance itself had to be honored with reverence. When at last he withdrew his hand, he opened the first ball before taking out the small letter inside of it. He held the first letter high, announcing it to everyone present. First name, Noah Carter. The crowd reacted at once, a swell of murmurs and sharp intakes of breath spreading through the stands. Excitement clashed with unease. Many remembered the confrontation between Noah and Kenzo after Ichigo's brutal defeat, and the memory crackled through the audience like a spark touching dry tinder. All eyes turned toward Kenzo, waiting, hungry to see whether fate would answer the promise of retribution here and now or force the rivals to wait until the final clash. The referee's hand hovered above the bowl once more. The silence this time was heavier, pressing down on the arena until the sound of whispered speculation broke it into fragments. Will it be Kenzo? A voice asked from the stands, urgent and low. This could end it before the finals even begin, another murmured, unable to look away from the bowl. The referee reached inside once more, his movements measured, the suspense almost unbearable. Fingers closed around the second ball. The crowd seemed to stop breathing altogether, suspended between justice delivered at once and destiny postponing the inevitable duel. Noah's opponent had been decided, and it's Hiroshi. Fortunately or unfortunately, it wasn't Kenzo. It was Hiroshi. The matches had been decided. Noah versus Hiroshi, and Liam versus Kenzo. The tournament brackets glowed on the massive display screen above the arena, each name pulsing with anticipation. The crowd's murmur grew louder as they processed the matchups, some placing hurried bets while others debated the outcomes in hushed, excited tones. Suddenly, a voice erupted from the crowd, cutting through the ambient noise like a blade. Hiroshi! All eyes turned toward the source. Kenji stood in the middle section, his hands cupped around his mouth like a megaphone. Hiroshi's friend. The same one who had been eliminated by Hiroshi earlier in the tournament was now rooting for him. "You better win, Hiroshi," Kenji shouted. "Otherwise, I'll kill you myself." The threat hung in the air, but everyone could hear the underlying support beneath the harsh words. It was Kenji's way, rough around the edges but fiercely loyal. Some spectators chuckled at the display, while others nodded approvingly at the bond between friends. Hiroshi paused mid-stride, his head turning toward Kenji's voice. For a moment, his typically stoic expression softened. A genuine smile spread across his face. He raised his hand in acknowledgement. "I hear you, Kenji," he called back, his voice carrying easily across the arena. "Don't worry, I'm not planning to lose." The crowd roared its approval at the exchange. As their names echoed through the arena's sound system, Hiroshi made his way toward the platform. Each step was measured, confident. Kenji's words had lit a fire in him, not out of fear of the threat, but out of determination not to disappoint someone who had placed such faith in him. Hiroshi stepped onto the platform with a calm expression but a racing heart. He knew that this fight wasn't going to be an easy one. Noah was a prime candidate for the championship. Across from him, Noah was already in position, his own expression serious. The referee moved between them, explaining rules that everyone already knew by heart. But Hiroshi wasn't really listening. Noah stood across from Hiroshi, his posture relaxed yet stripped of the casual air he had worn in earlier matches. His expression hardened, not with anger, but with a focus that signaled he had no intention of dragging this round out. He was not here to entertain the spectators, the other competitors, or even the judges. He was here to do his job and move on. The referee raised the ceremonial leaf high, the delicate green trembling between two fingers before drifting downward. The arena hushed immediately as dozens of spectators fixed their eyes on the leaf, waiting for the moment it touched the floor. When the leaf landed with the faintest brush of sound, the world seemed to regain its vibrant color. Whoosh! Noah's figure blurred forward with incredible momentum, carrying him towards his opponent. Some of the spectators in the crowd gasped at the incredible speed. The judges, veterans of countless tournaments, leaned forward in interest. This was nothing like the cautious approach Noah had shown in all of his previous rounds. Noah launched himself across the platform with speed so sharp it felt unnatural, his movement starting before most realized the signal had been given. Hiroshi's eyes widened in shock. He had expected a measured opening exchange, perhaps even another round of Noah's counterattacking method. Instead, Noah closed the distance before Hiroshi's muscles had finished responding. It looked less like a reaction and more like foresight, as though Noah had already known when the match would begin. Thwack! The sword slammed into Hiroshi's guard before his blade had cleared half its arc. The strike landed with such force that it rattled through his arms and sent him stumbling backwards. His stance collapsed under the impact, his weight carried by instinct rather than control. The audience erupted. Some cried out in surprise, others whispered in disbelief. The judges traded glances, struggling to reconcile what they had just witnessed with the young man's earlier restraint. Incredible speed. One of them muttered, almost to himself, "He is no longer playing around, huh?" Among the crowd, Master Tanaka allowed himself a faint smile. Noah was no longer masking his ability with half measures and careful delays. This was the true strength he had kept hidden until now. That single exchange revealed the gulf between Noah and the rest of the tournament. Hiroshi was a capable swordsman, but against the force that had just been unveiled, capability meant nothing. What Master Tanaka and the rest of the spectators did not realize was that Noah had yet to reveal his true strength. He had not even drawn on half of it. If he had, Hiroshi would not simply have staggered backwards. He would have collapsed, his body broken beyond recognition, the blade cleaving through him despite its dull edge meant to prevent such outcomes. Noah pressed forward without pause. His next strike landed with terrific power, the blow hammering against Hiroshi's faltering defense and driving him stumbling once again. Each movement carried intent, efficient and difficult to stop, leaving no space for his opponent to breathe. The crowd roared. Excitement rattled the arena, a mix of awe and disbelief. Never before had a semifinal match shown such a staggering disparity in skill. It looked absurd, almost farcical, that two competitors standing on the same stage could be separated by such a gulf. Kenji's face darkened with fury as he watched from the sidelines. His fists clenched at his sides, nails digging into his palms. At this rate, Hiroshi was not just going to lose, he was going to be humiliated. To Kenji, Hiroshi's humiliating defeat was akin to his own. Since he had lost at Hiroshi's hands, that meant in turn that Noah would have dealt him a worse defeat, and he couldn't accept it. How could a lazy person like Noah, who didn't even train, beat them so easily? Kenji's jaw was so rigid that a little muscle was visible just underneath his cheekbone. "Hiroshi!" Kenji bellowed, his voice cutting through the din of the crowd. "Regain your footing, damn it. If you don't, I'll come down there and beat your ass myself." The threat echoed across the platform, but it did nothing to help. Hiroshi's teeth ground together as he tried to hold his ground. Sweat rolled down his temple, his arms trembling under the weight of Noah's relentless assault. Although only 5 seconds had passed since the battle had started, it felt like an eternity to Hiroshi, who was under the assault. He wanted to fight back, but all he could do was resist for another heartbeat, another breath, praying for an opening that never came. It was as if Noah's stance had no mistakes, no weaknesses, nothing he could exploit. But as a powerful swordsman, Hiroshi knew that there was no such thing as a perfect stance. This meant one thing, and it hurt him to his core. I'm simply not good enough. His skill, experience, and raw power completely overpower me. I have nothing over him whilst he has everything over me. I could only hold on for a few more seconds to save my dignity. Hiroshi thought with a grim look on his face. Whoosh! Clash! The air cracked with the sound of another strike. Noah fainted low, his blade cutting toward Hiroshi's side. Desperation flashed across Hiroshi's face as he twisted, lowering his guard to protect his liver. In that same instant, Noah moved. The feint became a fluid arc, the weapon rising and crashing down in a brutal overhead strike. Bam! The blow slammed against Hiroshi's collarbone. Pain buckled his knees, and he dropped down, the strength in his arms faltering. Before he could recover, Noah moved again, his follow-up strike precise and quick. With one clean sweep, he knocked the sword from Hiroshi's grasp. The weapon clattered across the platform, its echo loud against the silence that followed. The match was over. Noah stood tall, his breathing calm, his eyes steady. Hiroshi knelt before him, defeated, unable to even lift his arms. The crowd erupted once more, their cheers thundering through the hall. The arena erupted into a storm of voices. Did you see that feint? Fluid as water, then the strike, straight through the guard. One man exclaimed, leaning forward in his seat, eyes wide with excitement. Another, older spectator shook his head slowly. No one has moved like this in years. That boy reacted before the leaf even settled. I thought my eyes deceived me. A woman in an embroidered kimono whispered to her companion, her tone filled with awe. His awareness is frightening. It seemed like he was able to read the move before it happened. Her companion adjusted the golden clasp of his cloak, his lips curling into a faint smile. Anticipation is one thing, but speed like that, even among masters, I have rarely seen such clarity of movement. It is as if his body answers before his mind commands it. Another wealthy patron, fanning himself despite the cool air, muttered. And this is him holding back. Look at Hiroshi, reduced to his knees, completely outclassed. What sort of monster did they let into this tournament? A scholar of swordsmanship, seated near the judge's table, scribbled furiously into a notebook. He did not overpower Hiroshi. He dismantled him. Every step, every strike perfectly placed. Based on the power he had shown so far, he could have easily broken the collarbone of Hiroshi with that overhead strike. But he chose to be merciful, This is a rare trait. His master has really taught him well, truly astonishing. The applause and roaring voices had barely settled when a loud voice cut through the arena. The thud of boots striking the floor. Kenji had leapt from his seat, dropping directly into the arena. His landing echoed against the polished platform, and a wave of murmurs followed him as he strode forward, his expression locked in the same dark frown he had worn since the match began. Noah did not flinch. He stood with his sword lowered, his breathing calm, his eyes fixed on Kenji with the same composure he had shown throughout the fight. Kenji stopped beside Hiroshi, who remained kneeling on the floor, one hand pressed tightly against his collarbone, his chest rising and falling with shallow, uneven breaths. Kenji's voice rang out, sharp enough to slice through the noise of the crowd. "We demand a VAR review." He moved before the leaf had even touched the floor. That gave him the advantage, and that advantage decided the match. Without it, Hiroshi would not have lost. His arm shot out, finger stabbing toward Noah. "This result is illegitimate." The arena shifted instantly into conversations. Dozens of voices overlapped in a heated discussion. "He's right," one man declared, leaning toward the spectator seated beside him. "I swear I saw him move before the leaf touched. No one should react that fast." "Don't be ridiculous," a woman snapped from another row. "You think a fraction of a second would have saved Hiroshi? He was crushed from the start. Techniques like that cannot be undone by a delay." A wealthy patron waved his fan irritably. "Rules are rules. If the boy moved early, even by instinct, the match should be reviewed." "But look at the state of Hiroshi," another countered. "You call that the fault of a leaf's timing? No, that's the gulf between an apprentice swordsman and a master." The debate spread like wildfire. Enthusiastic patrons and even martial scholars locked into arguments. Some convinced that Noah's burst had broken the sanctity of the rules, others scoffing at the notion that Hiroshi could have stood a chance regardless. On the platform, the referee's face remained tense. He had seen the blur of Noah's body, the explosive speed that seemed almost inhuman. For an instant, even he had questioned if the leaf had truly touched the floor before Noah launched forward. He turned his gaze to Noah, then back to Hiroshi, torn between what the rules demanded and what his own instincts told him. The referee finally gave a short nod. "It is a valid call for review." His voice carried over the restless murmurs. The charge was exceptional, so fast that it could have occurred before the signal. "However, I must ask the competitor himself if he would like to proceed." He stepped closer to the wounded fighter, his tone steady but clear. "Hiroshi, do you wish for the match to be reviewed?" All eyes turned to Hiroshi. The crowd held its breath, waiting for his answer. His knuckles whitened against the floor as he clutched his collarbone, his pride battling his pain. For the first time since the leaf had dropped, the outcome of the match hung not on Noah's sword, but on Hiroshi's voice. Kenji crouched down and hooked his arm under Hiroshi's, helping him rise to his feet. Hiroshi winced, still clutching his shoulder, his breathing uneven. "Does it even matter?" Hiroshi muttered, his voice flat, eyes narrowing at the floor. "Look at me. I can't fight like this. A rematch is pointless. Forget it." Kenji's head snapped toward him, his brows furrowed in disbelief. "Are you mad, Hiroshi? What do you mean, forget it? They will postpone the fight until you are healed. You will have time to rest and prepare. You can still win this." His voice thundered across the arena, carrying his frustration. Hiroshi's brows knit tighter before he turned his head with a sharp glare. "Stop shouting in my ears. I am already half broken from that match, and your yelling makes it worse. I said forget it." His voice filled with exhaustion, the kind that stripped even anger from his words. The referee glanced at the judges seated nearby. They leaned together, whispers passing among them before each gave a small, deliberate nod. The referee straightened, his expression turning solemn. "Contestant Hiroshi," he said firmly, "you should be aware that if contestant Noah truly began before the leaf had touched the ground, it would not simply call for a rematch." Hiroshi raised his head and looked at the referee. "What would it call for?" Depending on the severity of your injury, the rules allow for the possibility of his disqualification. Should you be unable to compete in the championships for more than 2 days, his action would be considered a violation that undermines the fairness of the tournament. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd again, voices clashing over the weight of the referee's words. Some leaned forward with excitement at the thought of Noah's possible disqualification. Others scoffed, insisting that Hiroshi had been soundly defeated regardless of timing. Noah raised an eyebrow at the declaration, though his face remained calm. He did not speak, nor did he move to defend himself. To him, the notion of disqualification over his speed felt exaggerated, almost laughable. Yet, he could see the sense in the rule. If competitors believed they could exploit the slightest technical flaw without consequence, it would taint the integrity of the tournament. More importantly, if injuries caused by such actions delayed the championship, the repercussions would extend far beyond a single match. Kenji clenched his jaw, his grip tightening around Hiroshi's arm. "You hear that? You have every right to demand justice. Don't throw this away." Hiroshi stood in silence, caught between pride and exhaustion, while the entire hall waited for his decision. In the end, after listening to the referee outline the possibility of disqualification, Hiroshi's thoughts began to shift. Until that moment, he had been ready to reject the VAR outright. To him, calling for a review was something a bitter loser would do. What pride could be found in asking for a second chance after being so thoroughly beaten? Had the option of disqualification not been raised, his answer would have remained firm. He would have walked away with defeat, painful as it was, and carried the weight of it as his own. Because no matter how unfair the timing might have seemed, he still believed the outcome would not have changed. Noah had been on a completely different level. Unlike Kenji, who shouted from the sidelines, Hiroshi had stood in front of Noah and felt every strike. The memory of that pressure, the raw force in each blow, lingered in his arms and shoulders. The fight had drained him so completely that the thought of facing Noah again filled him with nothing but exhaustion. There had been no chance to adapt, no opening to learn, no rhythm to grasp. He had been dominated from the first instant. Even if he were given another attempt, the result would not be different. Still, the rules left him with a choice. Whilst pride urged him to refuse, logic told him that the possibility of disqualification, however unlikely, should not be dismissed so easily. And beneath both, fatigue whispered for him to end it quickly, to avoid another round of punishment. His lips parted as if he wanted to argue further, but no words came. At last, with a deep breath, he spoke. "All right, I will agree to the check." His eyes shifted toward Noah. For a brief moment, his hardened expression softened into something almost apologetic, as if to say that the decision was less his own will and more the weight of circumstance. Noah, however, showed nothing in return. He remained still, wooden sword at his side, his face unreadable. He neither protested nor smirked. He simply waited, silent and unmoved, as if the verdict did not concern him. The referee nodded, acknowledging Hiroshi's decision. His features grew stern as he turned toward the judges. "Very well. We will review the footage." With deliberate steps, he left the platform to begin the VAR process, while the arena buzzed with whispers. Some spectators leaned forward with excitement at the possibility of an overturned match. Others crossed their arms, shaking their heads at what they saw as a futile delay. And at the center of it all, Noah stood in absolute stillness, his silence louder than the crowd itself. Noah stood quietly on the platform, his grip loose around the sword, his expression unchanging. He watched as the referee conferred with the 3 judges. Their voices dropped to hushed tones, their heads bent together as the video replay flickered across their private monitors. Fingers pointed, gestures traced movements frame by frame. They slowed the footage, reversed it, and studied it again from different angles to ensure nothing slipped past unnoticed. Every detail mattered. If Noah had moved even a fraction of a second too early, he would have been caught. If there was a violation, it would be undeniable. The arena grew restless as the minutes stretched on. 10 minutes passed in uneasy anticipation. Whispers rippled across the stands, speculation and theories clashing. Some were convinced the review would expose Noah. Others shook their heads, claiming they had seen nothing but clean, perfect timing. Finally, the referee raised his hand for silence. The chatter died down in waves until no sound remained. The referee stepped forward, his voice loud and clear to everyone present. After thorough review by the judges and officials, no violations have been detected. Contestant Noah Carter acted within the rules. The decision stands. Noah Carter has officially advanced to the finals. The arena erupted instantly. A wave of applause and cheers burst from one side, while on the other side, people gasped, muttered, and shook their heads in disbelief. Relief and excitement swirled among many spectators, thrilled to see such a talent secured for the championship match. Yet others could not reconcile what they had seen with the verdict. Kenji was among them, his face tightened with frustration, his support for Hiroshi unwavering. He thrust his hand into the air, his voice cutting through the noise. "Show us the video, we would like to see it." All eyes turned back to the referee. For a moment, silence lingered, but then the official gave a firm nod. For legitimacy and transparency, the footage will be displayed to the audience. A cheer rose from some corners of the crowd, while others leaned forward with anticipation. Frame by frame, the recording began to play on the massive screen. The ceremonial leaf floated downward, twirling in the air. The audience leaned forward, eyes fixed, the silence so complete that even the faint creak of chairs echoed. The leaf brushed the platform. At that exact instant, Noah moved. In slow motion, the crowd could finally see the truth. He had not cheated. He had not moved before the signal. He had simply launched forward with such terrifying speed that, in real time, it had looked impossible. The instant the leaf touched, his body shot across the platform, and by the time most eyes registered the signal, he had already crossed more than half the distance between him and Hiroshi. Gasps rippled through the stands. One spectator clutched the railing in front of him. "Oh God! How can a human body accelerate like that?" He went from stillness to full sprint without even building momentum. A wealthy patron shook his head, fanning himself nervously. "Do you see this? The best runner in the world covers 100 meters in a little over 9 seconds. That is with years of conditioning, perfect form, and space to build speed." Noah crossed half the platform in the blink of an eye, without a single step wasted. It was a pure burst with no build-up, but an explosion. A sword enthusiast leaned over his notebook, scribbling furiously. "It is not natural. Even trained martial artists take time to shift their weight, to generate power in their legs." He bypassed all of that. His body answered instantly. "That is more than talent. That is something else entirely." Another spectator let out a nervous laugh, disbelief across his face. If a man like that ran in a track race, he would cover 10 meters before the rest even lifted their feet. What monster have they let into this competition? He had a sword in his hand too. He is terrifying. Others simply stared at the screen, mouths slightly open, eyes wide with shock. They had seen prodigies and champions over the years, but none of them had ever witnessed such raw acceleration, such terrifying command over movement. The replay ended with Noah's strike landing on Hiroshi's half-drawn guard, the thwack of wood against wood echoing once more in their minds. The crowd burst into another wave of chatter, some voices raised in awe, others in unease. "It wasn't cheating," one man muttered, almost dazed. "It was worse. He is just that fast." Even those who had doubted him at first fell silent, the replay burning into their minds. What they had just seen was not merely talent. It was dominance of the body itself, something that placed Noah far beyond the reach of normal fighters. After the announcement had been made, the referee raised his hand for silence once again. His voice carried across the hall. "There will be a 10-minute break before the next match begins." It was a necessary pause. The semifinals were not just matches. They were events to be remembered, spectacles worthy of every second of attention. The crowd needed space to digest what they had witnessed, to let the replay sink into memory. Yet the break was short, only 10 minutes. These were not ordinary spectators with empty schedules. They were men and women of wealth and influence, people whose businesses, investments, and dealings followed them wherever they went. Even here, many clutched phones in their hands, murmuring to assistants or scanning messages, juggling the demands of power while awaiting the next clash. From the stands, Kenzo leaned forward with his elbows resting on his knees. His usual smug grin had slipped away, replaced with a deep frown that shadowed his facial expression. For the first time, he studied Noah with genuine focus. He had always dismissed him, always believed Ichigo was the more dangerous prey, the one worth hunting. Noah, in his eyes, had been nothing more than an obstacle to brush aside. But what he had just witnessed challenged that mindset. The replay had stripped away doubt. Noah was not ordinary, not even close. Kenzo's lips tightened. I miscalculated. The thought stung. He did not enjoy being wrong. And yet, even as that truth pressed on him, his confidence did not waver. Whether it was stubborn pride, blind faith in his own abilities, or a certainty born of something hidden, Kenzo clung to it. He would not bow, not even inwardly. His answer would come soon enough. Tomorrow would reveal whose conviction was built on reality and whose on delusion. As for his opponent in the semifinals that would come in the next few minutes, Kenzo did not give him too much attention. In his eyes, Liam was nothing but a stepping stone towards his victory. Elsewhere in the spectator seats, Liam sat in silence, arms folded across his chest. His gaze followed Noah, but unlike Kenzo's, it carried no challenge. His jaw clenched, the skin around his eyes drawn tight as he thought back to the fight. The speed, the skill, the way Noah dominated Hiroshi without pause, it was beyond anything he could match. The bitter truth pressed into him like a stone sinking in water. I can't win against this guy. He exhaled sharply, almost a laugh, though it held no humor. He's not human. He's a monster. Whilst the spectators did their own thing, whether working, texting, calling, or even chatting to their neighboring seat. For Kenzo and Liam, the break was not a chance to relax. It was a moment of reckoning, each forced to confront Noah Carter in their own way. Kenji looked more visibly upset than Hiroshi was, but he was unable to do anything about it. The evidence was as clear as day. Looking at the expression his friend was making, Hiroshi shook his head with a tired smile before turning his head towards him. Let's go, Kenji. There is nothing left for us here to do. We can only try to get stronger for the next tournament. Kenji nodded his head grimly as he helped his friend walk. The medical team tried to intervene, but Hiroshi had already shook his head, telling them there was no need. The mercy that Noah had shown him was visible. After leaving the arena, Noah stepped into the cool air that pressed close around the stadium. The shouts and chatter of the departing crowd drifted like a fading echo behind him. At the edge of the walkway, a familiar figure stood, waiting with a still and dignified posture. Master Tanaka's hands rested behind his back, his gaze steady as Noah approached. Noah, I am proud of your progress. Truly proud. You have advanced beyond what even I had dared to expect. Tanaka said, his voice carrying warmth that softened the lines of his face. Noah nodded deeply, the gesture rooted in respect rather than formality. Thank you, Master. Everything I have achieved rests on the foundation you gave me. Of course, that wasn't entirely true, but Noah was being polite. The pride in Tanaka's eyes faded, as though a hidden weight pressed down on him. A shadow passed across his features, and when he spoke again, his words were slow and well thought out. There is something I must say before tomorrow. It troubles me to remain silent. He studied Noah for a moment, then continued. Do not let vengeance become your compass. The desire for retribution burns hot, but it consumes the one who carries it. You are destined for more than settling scores. Mercy, when it can be shown, will serve you longer and carry you farther than revenge ever could. His voice held the texture of experience, and Noah recognized the feeling of melancholy that Master Tanaka was emitting. This was not a lecture drawn from philosophy, but the confession of a man who had walked the wrong path once and never fully escaped its shadow. The regret in Tanaka's tone gave his words a weight that no textbook or training hall could provide. Noah neither agreed nor rejected Tanaka's words. With a quiet and sincere tone anchoring his voice, he said, "Thank you for your guidance, Master." Tanaka nodded, satisfied that his heart had been spoken, yet unwilling to burden his student further. He understood that advice pressed too hard could become resistance. Wisdom had to be carried willingly, not forced upon the shoulders of the young. "I will not keep you longer," Tanaka said, stepping aside. With a soft smile on his face, Tanaka said, "Rest well. You have an important match awaiting you tomorrow. I will be there to watch and support you from the crowd." Noah inclined his head once more before moving past him, the night swallowing the sound of his footsteps. Back at the resort, he closed his room door and let out a slow breath. Without hesitation, he accessed his portal to the shop. Just as he had done the night before, he would spend the remaining hours training and honing his skills. Inside his shop, Noah appeared on the second floor, having deliberately chosen this as his exit and entry point to avoid disturbing Lola's training session below. Looking around, he didn't spot Leo, which meant the golden mane lion was likely resting beside Lola as she practiced. Noah glanced at the idle room and confirmed it remained unavailable. 24 hours hadn't passed yet, preventing him from using the automated training system for skill advancement. He made his way down the stairs quietly, careful not to create any sound that might break Lola's concentration. The sight of Lola practicing with closed eyes while Leo sat peacefully beside her filled Noah with warmth. The scene embodied the family-like atmosphere he had come to cherish, a sanctuary of peace and serenity within his shop. Even though the outside world remained cruel, with beings killing without mercy, none of that mattered within these walls. His shop had become a haven where care and support flourished. Noah found himself studying Lola's focused expression, which he found incredibly charming. After consuming the rose petal candy, her natural beauty had been enhanced even further, making it difficult to look away after landing his eyes on her. He stared at her for a full minute, his mind wandering through various thoughts and possibilities. After the minute passed, he shook his head firmly. "What am I thinking?" All kinds of thoughts had rushed through his mind during that brief period, and he felt genuinely embarrassed considering that Lola might not harbor similar feelings toward him. The uncertainty about her emotions, combined with their professional relationship, the complexities of their situation, and his previous relationships, made such contemplations feel presumptuous and problematic. Noah quietly retreated his gaze to give himself space to focus on training rather than dwelling on romantic complications that could damage their current relationship. His eyes casually moved toward the window, and he caught something that made him narrow his eyes in suspicion. Outside his store stood two elves, one dark elf and one light elf. Their presence outside his shop made him frown with concern about their intentions. Noah wasn't surprised that they weren't attacking each other. He had established clear rules: no bloodshed until the auction concluded, which was still a day away. By that time, Lola would have significantly improved her strength and possibly reached the power levels of Darian and Seraphina, despite having only achieved Grandmaster rank a few days earlier. The peaceful training environment Noah provided, coupled with daily consumption of instant coffee and mystical herb tea, had accelerated her progress beyond anything previously recorded in this world. The concentrated enhancement regimen was producing unprecedented results. After all, during the auction, it was evident that even people at the top of the food chain, like Seraphina and Darian, would sacrifice thousands of lives for a single powerful premium item that Noah could provide. Yet Lola was consuming 12 enhancement items daily, a level of augmentation that dwarfed what even the strongest in the Elven Kingdom could access. The irony wasn't lost on him. While entire kingdoms fought wars over individual enhancement opportunities, his employee enjoyed unlimited access to the very items that drove their conflicts to higher limit. The disparity in resources highlighted just how dramatically his shop had disrupted the natural power balance of this world. Noah watched the elves carefully, wondering what had brought representatives from both factions to observe his establishment during the ceasefire period. Leo, who had been sleeping peacefully, stirred at Noah's presence and padded over to him, rubbing against him affectionately. Noah smiled and gently caressed the young lion, whispering quietly to avoid disturbing Lola's training. "Leo, how long have they been stationed out there?" Noah pointed his fingers at the two elves stationed outside the store. Leo glanced toward the window and replied in equally hushed tones. "They've been there for hours, Father. They arrived about an hour after you left." Noah nodded with understanding before walking toward the door and opening it to address the waiting elves directly. "How can I help you?" he asked with neutral courtesy. Both elves immediately tensed as someone finally emerged from the mysterious shop. Despite their curiosity and growing impatience, they hadn't dared to knock, shout, or create any disturbance that might anger the shopkeeper before them. Their caution stemmed not necessarily from fear of his personal strength, but from explicit instructions their respective leaders had provided about maintaining respectful relations with the human shopkeeper. "Shopkeeper," the light elf began carefully, "your shop has been closed for 2 days. I was wondering if the auction is still scheduled to proceed, and whether you might have any items available for purchase." Noah shook his head firmly. "No items are currently for sale, and the auction remains on schedule. Also, don't wait outside my establishment. I'll inform both factions when the auction is about to begin, or when products become available for purchase." His tone carried clear dismissal, indicating their surveillance was neither necessary nor appreciated. The elves nodded respectfully and offered apologetic bows. "I understand, shopkeeper," the dark elf said with deference. "I apologize for the intrusion." "Thank you for clarifying the situation," the light elf added. "I'll inform Queen Seraphina about the auction schedule." Both representatives departed promptly, heading in opposite directions to avoid any potential conflicts that might violate the ceasefire terms. Their relief at receiving clear guidance was evident as they made their way back to their respective camps. Noah watched them leave before closing the door and returning his attention to the peaceful atmosphere inside his shop. The brief interruption had been handled efficiently without disturbing Lola's training or escalating tensions between the factions. Leo padded back to his position near Lola, settling down to resume his quiet vigil while she continued her intensive practice. The shop returned to its serene state, with only the subtle sounds of magical energy circulation indicating the powerful advancement taking place within its walls. Noah walked toward the shelves and retrieved one of each Tier 1 premium item: protein bar, energy drink, beef jerky, and rice cake. He wasn't retrieving them for flavor like last time, nor was it to fill his hunger. Rather, it was for the temporary enhancements. The enhancements forced his body into a higher state, a level of performance he would not normally sustain. Training under those conditions created a sort of adaptation. Muscles learned to bear heavier strain, mana channels adjusted to greater flow, and reflexes tuned themselves to quicker demands. Even when the temporary effects faded, the residue of training under those conditions remained. By pushing himself in this way, Noah compressed progress into a shorter span, and time saving is always welcome. You have consumed Tier 1 item, protein bar. You gain a 50% increase in strength attribute for 20 minutes. You have consumed Tier 1 item, rice cake. You gain a 50% increase in intelligence attribute for 20 minutes. You have consumed Tier 1 item, beef jerky. You gain a 50% increase in vitality attribute for 20 minutes. You have consumed Tier 1 item, energy drink. You gain a 50% increase in agility attribute for 20 minutes. The combined enhancements flooded through his body simultaneously, bringing his effective attributes to impressive levels: 135 strength, 135 intelligence, 210 vitality, and 135 agility. The substantial boosts created a foundation for more intensive training than his base capabilities would normally allow. Noah settled into his meditation position and began training with a focused expression on his face. The enhanced attributes enabled him to push his magical pathways harder, circulate more mana, and maintain concentration for extended periods without the usual fatigue limitations. The temporary power boost essentially allowed him to train as if he were already at a higher rank, accelerating his actual progression toward those levels. The use of enhancement items for training purposes demonstrated Noah's understanding that temporary power could create permanent advancement when applied correctly to skill development. Hours passed as Noah and Lola sat in focused silence, each dedicated to their respective training regimens. Leo rested contentedly beside them, having enjoyed some of the Tier 1 enhancement items Noah had shared with him earlier. The peaceful atmosphere of concentrated advancement filled the shop as both practitioners pushed their powers toward new levels through effort and will. Your skill mana control has reached level 14. Noah felt the familiar sensation of a breakthrough as his understanding of mana deepened further. The advancement to level 14 represented another step toward true mastery, bringing him closer to the adept rank, where he could be considered a strong practitioner in Esta. Each level gained increased his ability to channel power efficiently and maintain complex spells under pressure. Leo's satisfied expression suggested he, too, had benefited from the enhancement items. Still, Leo was no longer able to advance further, having reached his natural limit at the master rank. The shared training session continued as both Noah and Lola remained immersed in their respective advancement pursuits, the shop's peaceful environment supporting their accelerated progression. Your skill aura has reached level 14. After advancing his aura to match his mana control level, Noah withdrew the wind orb from his storage ring and began practicing his wind manipulation skill. The Tier 5 artifact pulsed with concentrated elemental essence as he settled into position for focused training. The wind orb's contained power would allow him to push his elemental manipulation techniques beyond normal training, slowly advancing his wind manipulation to level 14 as well. Maintaining balanced skill development across all his primary abilities remained crucial.